Gucci, Louis, Louis, Gucci, Gucci, Louis, Louis, Gucci, Gucci, Louis, Louis. Gucci, Gucci, Louis, Louis, Gucci, Gucci, Louis, Louis, Gucci, Gucci, Louis, Louis. Fendi, Fendi, Prada, Fendi, Fendi, Prada, Fendi, Fendi, Prada, Fendi, Fendi. Gucci, Gucci, Louis, Louis, Gucci, Gucci, Louis, Louis, Gucci, Gucci, Louis, Louis. Fendi, Fendi, Prada, Fendi, Fendi, Prada, Fendi, Fendi, Prada, Fendi, Fendi. Gucci, Gucci, Louis, Louis, Fendi, Fendi, Prada. Them basic bitches wear that shit, so I don't even bother. Gucci, Gucci, Louis, Louis, Fendi, Fendi, Prada. Them basic bitches wear that shit, so I don't even bother. I put that on my partner, I put that on my family. Oakland City represent, address me as your majesty. Yeah, you can kiss a ring, but you can never touch the crown. I smoke a million Swisher blunts and I ain't never coming down. Bitch, you ain't no Barbie, I see you work at Arby's. Never to supersize it, hurry up, I'm starving. Gnarly, radical, on the block I'm magical. See me at your college campus, baggy full of Adderalls. Call me if you need a fix, call me if you need a boost. See them other chicken heads, they don't ever leave the coop. I'm in the coop cruising, I got the stolen plates. Serving all the fiends over there by the Golden Gate. Gucci, Gucci, Louis, Louis, Gucci, Gucci, Louis, Louis, Gucci, Gucci, Louis, Louis, Gucci, Gucci, Louis. Fendi, Fendi, Prada, Fendi, Fendi, Prada, Fendi, Fendi, Prada, Fendi, Fendi. Gucci, Gucci, Louis, Louis, Gucci, Gucci, Louis, Louis, Gucci, Gucci, Louis, Louis, Gucci, Gucci, Louis. Fendi, Fendi, Prada, Fendi, Fendi, Prada, Fendi, Fendi, Prada, Fendi, Fendi. Gucci, Gucci, Louis, Louis, Fendi, Fendi, Prada. Them basic bitches wear that shit, so I don't even bother. Gucci, Gucci, Louis, Louis, Fendi, Fendi, Prada. Them basic bitches wear that shit, so I don't even bother. I put that on my partner, I put that on my family. Oakland City represent, address me as your majesty. Yeah, you can kiss a ring, but you can never touch the crown. I smoke a million Swisher blunts and I ain't never coming down.
Do you agree that there's no such thing as racism, sexism, homophobism, Islamophobism, deadbeat dadism, white supremacism, and all the other isms? Destiny, that's a woman's name. You were raised by your daddy and mama. That makes you half man and half woman. You are a beta. You're not a real man, beta. I just have one question for ya, beta. There's just one thing I want to know. Destiny, do you love all people? Do you really love the blacks? Destiny, do you love black people? Why can't you just answer the question? Destiny, do you love all people?
Systems, the company store, the paradigm of absolute control. And that's why we're just out here doing simple things, pointing out that we're meant to be in nature and be natural. And this is where we find the source that God made to transcend the New World Order. And that's why they want to try to keep us out of it.
I'm angry. I've had enough of these people. They're a bunch of Christian murderers scum. They're on giant death factories keeping babies alive and selling their body parts. What more do you need to know about these people? I go out and face these scum. They literally crawl out from under rocks. They have green looking skin and they run around screaming, we love Satan, we wanna eat babies. I have them on video is in the creepy, weird, sick stuff, man. She sleeps in the same room with that creepy, weird woman whose mother wears a hood over her head. What the hell? That woman number one is ugly. Imagine how bad she smells, man. I'm told her and Obama just stink. Obama and Hillary both smell like sulfur. Literal vampire pot belly goblins are hobbling round coming after us. My spirit gets close to that evil and I feel it go. We're such self-centered crap. We don't even notice hell itself rising up against us. Millions of pointed people of the very worst type, and I'm so pissed. We're gonna stab your daughter at the mall. We're gonna stab your wife, your son. We're gonna stab you with a butcher knife, and then the police chief is gonna say, we love our Somalis, we love our Muslims. Oh, they're so good, oh, they're so sweet.
I was watching Fox News as I worked out this morning.
Whores in this house. There's some whores in this house. There's some whores in this house. There's some whores in this house.
I said certified freak. 7 days a week. Wet ass P word. Make that pullout game weak. Yeah, you effin' with some wet ass P word. Bring a bucket and a mop for this wet ass P word. Give me everything you've got for this wet ass P word. Beat it up, N word, catch a charge. Extra large and extra hard. Put this P word right in your face. Swipe your nose like a credit card. Hop on top if I want to ride. I do a kegel while it's inside. Spit in my mouth, look in my eyes. This P word is wet, come take a dive. And continue along these lines. And it gets significantly more vulgar. Like, a lot more vulgar.
I will eat your leftist ass like corn on the cob. I'm ready. I will eat your ass. I will eat your leftist ass like corn on the cob. I'm ready. I will eat you. I will eat your ass. My children aren't going hungry. I'll do it. I'll drink your blood. And I'm starting to think about having to eat my neighbors. You think I like sizing up? I'm gonna haul him up back chain. Chop his ass up, size it up. I'm gonna haul him up back chain. Chop, 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 chop. I will eat your leftist ass like corn on the cob. I'm ready. I will eat your ass. I will eat your leftist ass like corn on the cob. I'm ready. I will eat you. I will eat your ass. I'll barbecue your ass flat. I will cook your ass up so fast, and I'll tell them, oh, I killed a cow out back, baby. You think Christ would eat somebody? He would never do that. I will. I'm ready to hang them up, gut them and skin them and chop them up. You know what? I'm ready. I will eat your leftist ass like corn on the cob. I'm ready. I will eat your ass. I will eat your leftist ass like corn on the cob. I'm ready. I will eat you. I will eat your ass. I will eat your leftist ass like corn on the cob. I'm ready. I will eat your ass. I will eat your leftist ass like corn on the cob. I'm ready. I will eat you. I will eat your ass. And that's why I want the globalists to know. I will eat your ass first. I swear to God, if it's the last thing I do, I'm gonna get my hands around your throat.
What rolls downstairs, owner and pears, rolls over your neighbor's dog? What's great for a snack and fits on your back? It's long, long, long. It's long, long. It's big, it's heavy, it's wood. It's long, long. It's better than that, it's good. Everyone wants a long. You're gonna love it long. Come on and get your long. Everyone needs a long.
Log from Blammo.
Freaking you wet is all my
It's another B-Word broadcast. Let's go. How's it going, chat? How you doing? How you been? How's it going? We got ourselves another stream up here from Northern Ontario. It's a bit crazy. It's a bit different. But hey, I'm here for it. I hope you're here for it. We got a great show lined up for today. It done been good. But yeah, how you doing? It is Wednesday, December 21st. We're getting closer and closer to when you should be spending time with your family. Oh, I should check my Discord. I haven't been on Discord in forever. Sorry, Globus. I'll get right on that after stream. But yeah, how you been? How's it going? How are things? The internet is popping off. What can I say? We got the big baddies, you know, Donald Trump and Elon Musk, getting slapped around by I don't know, society, it seems like. We're gonna find out about Trump's tax returns finally after 6 years of audits, endless, infinite audits. And yeah, we're gonna take a look at the Twitter files. This is still happening. Most journalists put it all together into like a single story, and it's convincing. But they've been dripping and dropping it for like almost a month now. Twitter files have been going on for a long time. So we're gonna see what's going on with that. It's gonna get into like the Hunter Biden laptop. It's gonna be different. It's gonna be different, chat. I don't know what to make of it anymore. I don't know what they're doing. It doesn't even look or sound like journalism at this point. But hey, it's gonna be a good stream. I don't know how many more days. I know I got some evening streams lined up. But I'll probably stream every morning. Everybody's asleep. Everybody sleeps into like 10 or 11. So I don't know what to do with myself in the morning. I'm up at like 6 or 7. Like, I should do something with my life. But all right, we're gonna take a look at what the world is saying. Taby is a hack. How could you say such blasphemy? It's frustrating because like I had such a high opinion of Matt Taby a decade ago. He was like the best writer when it came to the Coctopus. You know, the David and Charles Koch. I think there's only one of them now. And he was great. He was awesome at it. He really covered the beat well. And now he's just like some right-wing attack dog. Like, it's so sad. And you know, the thing that you can rely upon is them infighting. So the arc of Elon Musk like unfollowing Barry Weiss is chef's kiss. Absolutely hilarious. So let's get into it. The top story is going to center on Elon Musk. We spent so much time on Trump, so we'll take a look at that on the back half, mostly because there's more entertaining content. I found some interviews between Russell Brand and Matt Taby, so that's going to be a real hoot. But yeah, let's queue up the first vid. I'll blast off and we'll get right into it. Also, good morning, everybody. Good morning, Globus. How you been? I'll jump on my Discord at some point. I think got a couple of steps to do before I get there. All right, let's go. Okie dokes. First story of the day. Elon Musk says he'll resign as head of Twitter. And you believe him for reasons. Okay, so I don't know if you're on Twitter, if you jumped off that hell site or what, but there are polls that Elon Musk is doing and maybe abiding by. Nobody really knows just how serious he's taking it. I don't know if you can really see chat that way. I might have to redo my chat. But all right, let's check out this first story. Just gonna drop the tunes by a gajillion. Oh my god. Just took a look at my audio. Blasting you with some bad tunes. Sorry. Okay, so, yeah. After polling Twitter users, Elon Musk on Tuesday night said he will resign as head of the social media platform. Quote, I'll resign as CEO as soon as I find someone foolish enough to take the job. After that, I will just run the software and servers team. So it's from this tweet. Which is awesome. He's like immediately walked it back. Here's and people look at this stuff from Trainwrecks. I'll not only take the position, but I'll put in a lot of money, so you know I won't come in just to fuck it up and fuck you over. On top of that, this position needs to be filled by a centrist that isn't influenced by clout or popular opinion votes. Like, my guy. You're a slot host. Your show is about watching gambling. You're not doing very much with your life at this point. Is that content? Okay, so we can have Sean be it. He's a socialist. That'd be funny. I think there was another piece of it where he said, I will abide by the results of this poll, but then later was like wondering whether it was bots that had done it. Oh jeez. All right, so that's the first little bit. We're moving right along. Yeah, here it is. Now there's a clip from Ron Filipkowski who says that Trump is calling Musk a hero for his Twitter files on Hunter Biden. If only the media had reported this, I would have won, he says. It's awesome. It's kind of unhinged. I don't know what to tell you. So let's take a look at that. Oh, right, I forgot. This is the worst feature of streaming on a Mac. Anytime you go full screen, it like takes it over. All right, let's roll that back.
So I think that it's a big part of his legacy. I think it's more important than other things he's done, and it's very important.
Musk actually put out a poll, as you know, asking the public if he should step down, that he would abide by the poll results. And Mr. President, looks like Elon is hunting for a new Twitter CEO. Any advice from Musk on this one?
Yeah, I think he wanted to step down. I think that's a good way of stepping down. You know, just losing a poll and say, hey, I'm out of here.
But what advice would you give Mr. Musk?
You saw the poll companies come out. Could have made a 20-point difference. Now, you know, without it, I won this election. But with it, it's 20 points. You're talking about millions and millions and millions of votes.
Do you characterize him as a hero in this regard?
Yeah, I say
he's a hero, everybody. He's a hero. Elon Musk, the hero. Honestly, the hero worship has gotten so crazy. It's absolutely insane at this point. I can't even keep up with it. Alright, I just want to watch another clip. We got the Twitter files lined up. I wanted to see the Russell Brand interview with Matt Taibbi. So let's take a look at that briefly.
Russell Brand.
Russell Brand.
We're talking about the nature of propaganda.
Oh, he fixed his intro. It used to be like some fart noise or whatever. It was like made by a 12-year-old. It looked so ridiculous and stupid. I'm glad he improved it with some brand that is not just really ridiculous.
Stay free with me, Russell Brand. We're talking about the nature of propaganda and the nature of truth, and I suppose that leads us to real investigative journalism. And as sure as day follows night, you can't mention investigative journalism without perhaps uttering the names that rhyme with baby and maybe. Yes, it's Matt Taibbi. Matt, thanks for joining us. It's so lovely to see you.
Right.
Oh, thanks for having me on, Russell.
Well, we're here and we're angry with you. We're angry and we're jealous that you've been making all these revelations and you've been carrying on. Can you tell me firstly how it unfolded, your relationship with Elon Musk, and how he told you that he wanted you to release these files?
Well, that part of it's complicated because I agreed from the start to a general attribution, which is sources at Twitter. So the kind of the story of how I got the story, I got to just leave it at that. But I can tell you about interactions with Elon Musk. He's. It's funny. I've had a lot of. I've probably done tens of thousands of interviews. I mean, thousands at least of interviews in my life, and there's.
Just really quickly, here is the tweet. Chat, juice it. Juice the tweet. If you don't follow me on Twitter, follow me on Twitter. That's where all the things get updated. Let's carry on.
Always this uncomfortable moment when you ask to turn on the tape recorder or the recorder, because the person's always afraid that you're gonna, catch them. This is the first time that I looked in somebody's eyes and I could tell they legitimately just did not give a fuck at all.
I looked into his eyes and I could tell he was a good man.
Whether or not I was recording, like what I was going to write. And I was explicitly told I could write anything I wanted. And we haven't seen anything or run into anything that suggests otherwise. So
he's a pretty unique individual with obviously, like all comparable outlets, spent a lot of time considering Elon Musk, contemplating his unique cultural space, the fact that he's part Donald Trump, part Willy Wonka, part Richard Branson, part Steve Jobs, part disruptor. And I know that part of oh gosh, I don't want to gratify them by using the word backlash, but you have, subsequent to making these revelations, you've been accused of being something of a kind of, I don't know, left-wing apostate. What like the idea is that Elon Musk is the sort of representative of a new sort of right-wing type of rhetoric and political perspective, and that you haven't made any revelations about a sort of shadow banning of left-wing figures. And why is that, Matt?
Because we haven't seen it yet. We're looking for it. I think one of the misperceptions that people have is that we're sitting in front of a terminal that has global access to everything. And if that were the case, we'd be searching for all kinds of names. And but the data sets that we've looked for evidence in the other direction of, let's just say, requests from the Trump White House to get this person or that person banned. I was told that by human sources, so I felt obligated to put that in one of the threads, but we're not seeing that in the document, so I can't write about it. And I think everybody would say the same thing, which is, like, I don't care. Like, if it's interesting, I'll put it out there. But what we're seeing so far in these documents is not suggesting a whole lot of that. Let's put it that way.
The most interesting revelations, or the most scintillating at least, appear to be the suppression of the Hunter Biden laptop story, Twitter having a secret blacklist, and the removal of Donald Trump and trying to create a unique case for the removal of a sort of a political figure. But you believe that the most important thing is the relationship between law enforcement, government, and social media. Is that right, Matt?
Yeah, and that was the thing that I was really most interested headed into this project was, I think a lot of people have questions. How involved is the government in monitoring and censoring the speech of ordinary people? What we've seen so far already, and we have definite conclusive proof of, is that there are lots and lots of reports where we see Twitter executives saying things like, DHS flagged this, the FBI flagged this, and then there's a whole thread where they decide what to do about it. Do we remove it? Do we put a label on it? So there's tons of that stuff where they're clearly getting communications from the FBI. We also know that they have meetings, not just with the FBI and the DHS, but also.
If the FBI sees left-wingers or right-wingers agitating about political violence, like how would that process look otherwise? I don't know what the alternative here is. The FBI asks the company to take a closer look, and the company does.
A surprise was the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, who I hadn't heard that before. That was a new one.
This is embarrassing, man. Really? You didn't think the DNI might be interested in whether there's information PSYOP campaigns happening on social media platforms? Like, let's go. Come on, it's been a thing for like 10 years now.
And then we're learning a lot about the kind of scraping of raw intelligence and fire hosing it to the government, all kinds of government agencies on the back end.
Scary.
So the government is harvesting tons of information from
Patriot
these companies
Act.
and then turning around and
think I got it
spitting
right.
it back to companies like Twitter in the form of requests for, maybe bannings, maybe shadow bans, maybe deletions or labels and that sort of thing. It's fascinating.
It is fascinating because I suppose back in the utopian early days of online spaces, I think what all of us understood is that a new territory had emerged. And like any territory, it could become democratized. It could become a tool of connection, a revolutionary tool, something that would finally usurp the monopolized media spaces and their ongoing support of a elitist agenda, for want of a better phrase. But what
And then an elitist bought that space.
has happened is that expertly the social media spaces themselves have been corporatized and corralled, and what you have demonstrated through these revelations, through your revelations, is just examples of that in practice, that these spaces are no longer free spaces. They are managed and controlled spaces. They're not organic. And the idea that social media could be used to create insurrections, even if they're ideological insurrections rather than sort of actual social revolutions, is being quite strongly prohibited.
Okay, now this is the part that's going to drive me nuts, because I know they're going to watch this clip of Andrew Callahan on CNN. Triggers, Don Lemon.
One of our favorite segments here. YouTube.
First of all, I don't agree with what you're saying.
Yeah, here it is.
But I'm not exactly.
Here it is.
The movie's not just about like the Capitol riot and all that. It's also about
I can't do that. Sorry.
like media echo chambers. You know what I mean? And like the dangers of the 24-hour news cycle, and how I think mainstream media like Fox and even CNN like competes for views by running constant 24-hour news cycles based upon fear, division, outrage, and panic, probably to like sell ads. So it's not just about the Capitol riot.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure. First of all, I don't agree with what you're saying, but I'm not exactly sure of how that played into people going into the Capitol and rioting on January 6th. There's nothing fake about CNN.
Oh, I'm not saying like fake news. I'm just saying ramping people up and increasing division during that period of time. Just watching people kind of fall down the rabbit hole and be pushed into action and like just, yeah, falling down the conspiracy rabbit hole.
Wow.
It's awesome. It's great. Like, he's saying that this is the thing I find fascinating, is that right-wingers are going to watch that and be like, hell yeah, brother. CNN's been radicalized and done so much harm to this country. And even left-wingers will say that. Be like, yeah, CNN's kind of caustic and awful. And Andrew Callahan is a lefty, and he's saying that. And here we have Russell Brand and Matt Taibbi being like, golly gee, corporations are really taking over our free speech. Good thing we got ourselves a free speech warrior in Elon Musk, a single individual. That's not a point of failure.
Yeah, I think the thing that we were shocked by was the degree of idiosyncratic control over the visibility of every single user, account, hashtag. They have a whole universe of stuff that they can do to any single account. They can dial it all the way down to you cannot be searched. And then from there,
that's why I'm not popping off on Twitter.
Are like countless gradations of things that they can do, all the way up to your account will not trend. Only people who follow you can see you. Even people who follow you won't see you unless they search. Like there's
yeah, I've heard of those.
A whole list of stuff. So they have absolute control over the visibility of basically everything. And we haven't learned a lot about amplification of accounts yet, because that appears to be another side of the company. But in terms of cutting it down, dialing it down, we're learning a lot about that.
So presumably much of the angst about Elon Musk's acquisition was that he was visibly and palpably not a compliant figure like Zuckerberg or other oligarchs in the space. It isn't on board ideologically with the project. We know that sort of Zuckerberg wrote to Fauci and it's just sort of like, how can I be of any assistance type way? So if this is happening...
The thing that's crazy though is that, you know, Elon Musk is moving fast and breaking things, as Zuckerberg would say. And he's just having to relearn why those policies existed in the first place. The EU is clapping back and like it's getting into trouble all over the place. Like,
it's happening at Twitter. Obviously, the assumption is that similar programs are operating throughout the social media world, and another space that we are sort of taught to regard as neutral is in fact a highly managed space that's curated and potentially, as you say, amplified where necessary. We would assume it's true at Facebook. We'd assume it's true elsewhere.
Yeah, that's kind of been the discussion for like so many years now. I mean, the alt-right pipeline on YouTube is a whole lecture series, essentially, video essay series. It's old now. It's like 6, 7, 8 years now, and you can come across papers nowadays that say there's an ideological bent that favors conservatives on YouTube, and people aren't losing their minds over it. Like, relax.
Yeah, and we've seen evidence of the conversations within Twitter about what they do at other platforms. So you're right about that. I think it's a safe assumption that every single one of the major platforms has basically the same arrangement with the government, and we can't say definitely exactly how it works yet. But I'm assuming, I think it's a safe supposition that there's probably something similar to what's going on Twitter at the other platforms as well. It's just that Twitter is a different animal than the other platforms. Like, for instance, one of the things we were told is that...
Yeah, what's being presented, what's not being presented. I think a good point was Matt Taibbi was saying, like, we searched for other left-wingers, and, like, the thing he isn't saying is, we gave you the ability to go look for that, to double check our biases, to double check our methodology. But he's just skipping over, oh yeah, no, we look, just take our word for it. It's like, that's not how data science works, okay? Like, that's not transparency. We didn't cherry pick is not a good defense. Like,
you can't get sort of a viral outbreak of political activity as quickly, say, on YouTube, because people have to physically sit down and watch the video. On Twitter, it can happen in seconds, in microseconds, which is one of the reasons why they pay such close attention to every single thing that happens on the platform.
What will Elon Musk's actual ability to deny this kind of access to those sorts of agencies be? And I know this is speculative, and I certainly wouldn't expect you to put your relationship in jeopardy, but how distinct... So firstly, how much is Elon Musk likely to oppose the previous regime's relationship? And how different is Elon Musk's agenda likely to be, given that many of his economic relationships are going to be sort of comparable?
Normal people call it policy. What would his policies be? Not his agenda. Like... The word choice by Russell Brand is incredible. Like, from regime that had policy decisions amongst multiple experts that was open to review and scrutiny, or, you know, the agenda of Elon Musk, who's, you know, just trying to go against the regime. Like, oh man, the bias is intense. You have to take apart.
You know, we don't know that yet, and he explicitly, again, he told me we're not just interested in looking at bad stuff in the past. If there's bad stuff in the future, we want you to look at that too. So as we learn about all these things, we can look at it. But I will say, as a journalist, I think all of us, we all feel the same way, which is that we don't know how long this opportunity to look at this material is going to exist.
Why would that opportunity
And so I feel like we have a responsibility to try to dive into it as quickly as we can.
Oh, right, because you might get unfollowed by Elon Musk. You might have a sudden falling out like Barry Weiss did, and then lose access to the information. I know, right? Like, if you listen to every word, like, this is just right-wing propaganda. It's just agitprop. Like, it's kind of hilariously transparent. And I think that's why there's been, like, such a big disconnect between left and right. Like, left-wingers watch this and go, yeah, that ain't it, chief. Like, that isn't what you think it is. And then right-wingers are like, yeah, we eating good tonight. Twitter Files Part 9? Like, getting their TV dinners ready.
As we can and as comprehensively as we can before, something happens. Let's say there's a federal investigation or a congressional investigation and the whole thing gets shut down. So we feel like we got to look at that first. And there are other questions, obviously, about what's going on Twitter now. If people have questions about Elon Musk, I mean, those are things that we can try to answer. But I feel like right now, the priority is the documents that are in front of us.
Watch entire episodes on the...
Incredible, man. Incredible. All right, there's a second part. So this was uploaded a week ago, 7 days ago. So this must have been when Taby was publishing his set of the Twitter files. And then we're going to get into the policy discussions.
Russell Brand. You're only being attacked then, would you say, from the sort of establishment, the liberal establishment? That's the only place that attacks are coming from. There are no sort of folks on the right saying, oh, this is unconscionable. Are all your attacks coming from that space?
I don't know where they're all coming from. I mean, it's been pretty weird. I've gotten threats and, there's been harassment and all that stuff, but that comes with the territory. I'm not going to complain about it.
Don't harass journalists.
And but certainly the press backlash has been all of the same type. It's been remarkable to see how they're all using the same language and everything.
I can't. It's like somebody farting in the elevator, walking out, and then being like, man, everybody's talking about how I stank up the place. It's really odd how they're all using the same word, stink and stinky. Interesting. Maybe there's some sort of conspiracy. No, maybe they all see it for what it is, because they're all consummate professionals and see right through you. Like, it's so embarrassing. You're just a hack. You're just a hack, man. Like, what are you doing? Like, that's a bad sign. What is it? What's the saying? Like, if everywhere you go smells like shit, you better check your shoe. Like, come on, buddy.
It's almost like they got a memo from somewhere.
Oh yeah, it's a memo from somewhere. Yeah, they're all getting it from headquarters.
Which is incredible.
Yeah. Just speculation.
I don't know how they think this isn't a story for to see screenshots of where it says the FBI has asked you to look at this and this and this. That's not a story. I don't know any journalist who would look at that and not think that, a real journalist who would look at that and not think, well, that's cool.
Name a country that doesn't have that process. Name a Western country that does not have some communication between national, like federal level police forces and social media companies. Can you please name one? Like, come on, the GPDR is like massive. It has huge amounts of power. And that's not even a federal. That's like interfederal. This is massive European Union regulatory agency. Like, what are you talking about?
That's interesting. We got to learn more about that.
Man,
yeah, because I like Mehdi Hussein. I've known him for a little while, and he sort of was one of the most vociferously condemnatory, saying like, "Oh, you're doing the bidding of a billionaire." But I figured maybe he's on MSNBC and stuff. I mean,
that's embarrassing, Russell Brand. That's embarrassing. I can't believe you're saying Mehdi Hassan has lost reputation because he joined MSNBC. If anything, MSNBC gains reputation by having Mehdi Hassan. He's one of the best journalists on the planet right now. Shut the fuck up.
It's so unfortunate that the very type of journalistic integrity that seems more vital now than ever seems to be in total decline. That people's eyes seem...
That's your warning sign, man. If all the people you think are good journalists are saying you're full of shit.
Absolutely willing to uncritically absorb information and, as you say, reproduce sort of almost a template of criticism in the case of this story, at least.
Yeah, and again, I don't know what journalists wouldn't be totally turned on by the opportunity to look through these kinds of documents. I mean, for years, everybody who's used Twitter has had these questions like, do they do shadow banning? Or is my follower count being suppressed? Do they actually have that? What can they look at when they look at my account? And so when you see something like a screenshot of an account that has a big thing on it that says trends blacklist, it's incredible. I mean, what journalist wouldn't be interested in that? I find that just absolutely amazing. And this idea that, because, a source is whatever, we can't be interested in the documents. That's never the case. Look at, for instance, WikiLeaks. Like, you're talking about stuff that was stolen. We're not supposed to care about that. We're supposed to care about what's true. And it's our job to figure out whether these documents are real or not, and whether...
After this interview, we'll check out this article by Neelay Patel, the editor-in-chief of The Verge. She wrote an article in October, end of October, called "Welcome to Hell, Elon," and it explained a lot about like the business model of Twitter, which is that like they literally are selling regulation. They're selling the ability to control information, so you don't hear from 4chaners and you do hear from your echo circles or people who are slightly outside of it. And like all of this hullabaloo, like, did you guys hear this is how they make money, or actually don't, this is how they lose money? Like, it's like, yeah, that's the internet. Welcome to the internet. That's what social media companies sell.
And understand what's happening in it, but the provenance of it isn't supposed to be really that much of a factor. Obviously, Elon Musk is a part of the story. We got to address it at some point. But much more important is the stuff that we're looking at.
What about Musk hanging out with the Saudis and Jared Kushner? As a journalist who used to follow dark money, whose entire beat used to be the influence of hidden huge amounts of wealth. What are your opinions on Musk hanging out with the Saudis and Jared Kushner?
Yeah, in particular, I suppose the idea that it's ongoing, and that while there is this sense that we live in a time of great censorship where powerful interests are able to absolutely manipulate narratives and remain unaccountable, it seems that I feel like you're totally right. And in this instance, I suppose, like, I think I've mentioned it to you, and I've certainly mentioned it on the show enough, God knows, but like, I had a brief conversation with Elon Musk once, and I thought, like, he's sort of operating in a trans-moral space anyway, sort of almost sort of so intelligent and curious that I felt like,
Did Russell Brand just make up a word to excuse Elon Musk? Trans-moral? He's above morality, everybody. He did it. He's a billionaire who has so much power. There's no way for society to stop or influence him. And so he's surpassed all of our moral paradigms. Look at that. You just have to become rich enough, and then you're not even good. You're like above good and evil. Jesus.
That what he's doing here is likely legitimate, even if there is some entrepreneurial flair being shown in sort of bringing Twitter to the forefront in a kind of an interesting and elegant piece of rebranding. It was pretty curious that he thought he might get killed as well. That was pretty interesting.
What?
Yeah, I had a similar reaction to meeting him. I'm usually pretty good at reading people. I had a really tough time reading him. Some of the things that he...
Bro, in the last interview, you said you stared into his eyes and you could tell that this man was like unfazed by being asked questions. Like, that sounded like you read him, but now you're like tongue-tied?
That were suggestions. Like, I was very skeptical initially of the idea of putting all this out on Twitter first. I'm a long-form reporter. I like to explain everything, and all that.
You should have
stuck to your guns. There's a kind of brilliance in using Twitter to flay Twitter. And it's kind of also a burn on the regular media who tightly controlled Twitter for so long.
Did you hear how he's flipped that now? It's not Twitter enacting policies in conversation with national law enforcement, and then you have media agencies who abide by all this framework. Now it's the media companies are directing Twitter. Sorry, what? Explain that part again for me, please.
There's a little bit of genius in that I didn't recognize at first. And so, I think he's an interesting person and difficult to categorize. But I think that's a long-term job.
He's a billionaire breaking things.
Rather than trying to do the spade work of digging into these docs and figuring out what they mean.
Absolutely, I think you're right, because there is so much. The revelations are in themselves so weighty that to add to that, what is the presumed teleology or intention of Elon Musk, who is a fascinating figure, and anyone that powerful and that wealthy who happens to be pretty idiosyncratic also and isn't just towing the line, it's difficult not to reflect on what his agenda might be and where this might be going, because I know he's deeply into sort of off-planetary solutions and transhumanism. He's got a lot of interesting sort of like ideas. But thank you, Matt. That's really helpful. But we were talking earlier about the Ukraine war, I suppose, in light of David Letterman talking to Zelensky, and just their presentation of this product is pretty sanitary or hagiographic even, because what I feel
this is the part
is...
I hate about Russell Brand, where he uses these massive words. Teleological. I had to look that one up. Hagiographic. Like, bro, like, those are good, powerful words, but you got to build up to them, or you got to like maintain some level of consistency, or unbox that a little bit. You don't just throw that shit out there just randomly, just, oh yeah, it's super hagiographic, as it is. I'm sorry, what? I haven't been to a university level course in a while. Sorry, what's that mean again? Look, hagiography. The writing of the lives of saints. Oh, okay. So we're talking about how Musk is a saintly figure? Like, what? Say that again.
A lot of interesting sort of like ideas. But thank you, Matt. That's really helpful. But we were talking earlier about the Ukraine war, I suppose, in light of David Letterman talking to Zelensky, and just their presentation of this product is pretty sanitary or hagiographic even.
The presentation of the war in Ukraine is like saintly. It's like presenting saints. Why don't you just say that they're whitewashing Zelensky's image or something, or like they're trying to minimize the war? Like what? The man's a wartime president. Of course people are gonna want to like, I don't know, this is a weird, because
what I feel is that with the way that Putin is reported on continually as like sort of a malodorous and sick, filthy old Parkinson-ridden, self-defecating filth bag, it feels like that sort of that there's an inability to think critically in a nuanced way about a complex situation. When Jeffrey Sachs came on the show, he gave us a sort of a rundown on events between NATO and Russia from the 90s. He just gave us a sort of a whistle-stop tour between, well, they said NATO wouldn't impinge, NATO impinged. They said they wouldn't meddle in elections, they meddled in elections, and all the way through to sort of military-industrial...
This is sad. Russia invaded a country that they've been trying to take over since, like, the Crimean invasion. Like, people... one of the rare things in the modern era is that there is actually a simple story out there. That there is... although truth is the first victim of war, like at the beginning of the Ukraine-Russian war, like it was pretty straightforward, simple story. And all this convoluted mental gymnastics to try to make to both sides, like Russia the bear versus Ukraine the breadbasket of Europe. Like, how are you, like, what are you talking about? The bear invaded the fields of wheat. Like, like, how are you trying to turn Putin into a good guy here? The guy who's a kleptocrat, like, what?
Complex stuff. Do you think we're at a point, Matt, where
this is the meme of like, ever look at a map of Russia surrounded by NATO bases, and you're like, whoa, like, oh geez, oh wow, man, Russia really wants war. Look at all these NATO bases that are around them. Oh, jeez. Oh, man. Oh, I can't find it. Yeah, there it is. Look how close they put their country to our military bases. And it's like, NATO's a defensive alliance. And then y'all invaded someone right beside them. Like, what are you talking? What?
All news is propaganda, or at least the majority of mainstream news is propaganda.
If you start at Ukraine,
I think we're pretty close to that.
If you start at Ukraine,
I know for a fact that there are certain stories out there that would not have a home in traditional corporate media. And that is new, right? Once upon a time, a news organization was most interested in whether or not they had a big story. They didn't think about other considerations. Very rarely.
Okay, this is frustrating to listen to because we originally we all came from the era of Walter Cronkite, where everybody accepted that the journalist was reporting the news in a good faith way, and everyone shared a similar set of events, right? Like everybody shared a reality, and now we increasingly don't, as people are being separated into their media bubbles by, drumroll please, social media companies. Like,
you would see something like the New York Times reaching out to the CIA or having conversations with them about whether or not they should print something. But now I think that's routine across the entire business. I think maybe not the contact, but there's a presumption that we only print things that we think are going to like help whatever the cause is. And so there's, you combine that with the social media censorship, which is, and manipulation, which is just so sophisticated.
That's the part that people
now I don't know how you would cover something like the Ukraine war. And
I don't know. You have a scruffy reporter like Dylan Burns TV, shout out Dylan Burns, who went to Ukraine and just went and experienced it and filmed it and talked to people like almost all wartime journalists have done ever since the beginning of war. Like the time of mainstream journalism going out into war arenas, are they called? No, I'm missing the word. Yeah, I guess just to respond to you, Globus, I think the problem you have with that idea that states operate from their own self-interest is that it's increasingly true that there are like people who raid the public coffers. There are raiders who come through, who figure out how to get into office and then suck out the public infrastructure and privatize it for their buddies. It's what's happening in the province of Ontario in Canada with our healthcare system right now. And I think that's become the real problem. Like, the people are losing control over the state, which is increasingly being used as a conduit for, like, pilfering and pillaging and theft and stealing. And that's why you have, like, this increasing, like, debt just stuffed into the cities, stuffed into, like, the tax code. The Dictator's Handbook. CGP Grey did a great video on it. Yeah, and I took it very seriously. I haven't read the book itself, and I probably should, but yeah, it's a great premise, great argument.
And and have an impact, right? Because you'd be drowned out if you had a counter narrative fact.
Actually, we can build on that idea because in the Dictator's Handbook, the big point of it is that, or one point of it is that, like, democratic nations are harder to do the whole coup d'etat thing because you're trying to steal a treasury, which is an intelligent people who can produce stuff in a knowledge economy, and so that's why they're more secure compared to like a poor country with a single resource like oil or rare earth minerals, and then you have like juntas and whatever men with guns who come and just seize control of the nation's treasure and then build a society from there. I think the part that's new and different and what we're grappling with now is that the raiders have figured out that the treasure of public intelligence of like a democratic nation can be stolen. You just got to trick a bunch of people. You got to tell a really good lie. You got to do Brexit. You got to do January 6th. You got to figure out, we got to turn them into anti-vaxxers, because then you can build sort of like an army of lemmings and influence social policy that way. You just sort of get onto your side a bunch of bad votes or a bunch of people who are willing to question voting. And then all of a sudden, the society, which usually stands in your way with regulations or, let's say, like federal authorities, is now dealing with fires erupting domestically, and you can do your corporate rating. You can get your guy into office and write the tax code thing or whatever.
by so much other stuff, it would be difficult to report on. I mean, we're looking at the way that they're like suppressing or deciding whether or not to suppress hashtags that involve this war. We just started doing that, and so yeah, it's kind of an artificial landscape.
Have they? Have you seen the repression of hashtags relating to this war?
Yeah, I have. I've seen them also decide not to do it. Like there was one case where there was like hashtag I stand with Putin, where I was very surprised to see that they discussed it, but then they ended up leaving it up because they couldn't find any coordinated inauthentic activity behind it. But there's other stuff that they took down, and there's other things that are interesting, but we're only just starting to look in that direction.
I think sometimes it was arbitrary and just as a result of people's sort of personal political alliances. The reason that it sort of, broadly speaking, has been favourable to the establishment liberal class was just because that's the general affiliation of the people that were on the team.
Yeah, that's one of the things that's amazing about the stuff that we've already put out even is you can see in these threads somebody will say, oh, this got escalated by whatever, the ops team. What do you think? And then like 2 minutes later, you'll get a decision from some very senior executive who'll say, nah, that's fine. Okay. Because the executive clearly either thinks it's true based on whatever, or did a Google search and found an NPR article that they liked, or I mean, it's that unsophisticated on that level. It's like they'll get a request about something, and then they'll do like a 2-second Google search, and that will be the basis for whether or not they censor it. It's just really weird.
I guess the pushback I would say is like somebody who's doing that a gazillion times a week or day or whatever, like they're gonna have a pretty sharp understanding of the media landscape, of what constitutes legitimate journalism compared to illegitimate journalism, based off bylines, based off of the news organization itself. Like scoffing that NPR is like not that's not substantive is bizarre to me. She's just like hand waving away NPR. Like, what? Do you just have an ideological bias against them and therefore they don't count? Like, are you for real right now? Come on. What the fuck, Davey?
Yeah, I suppose that's why the Hunter Biden laptop story is so significant, because there was obviously an assumption that that would have a negative impact on the election, so they repressed it. And now, 18 months later, mainstream media in our country, like the BBC, it's just, oh yeah, that was true, that got repressed. And then what do you think about sort of, I suppose in the realm of celebrity, Kanye West was sort of like, he was banned before, now he's banned again. It seems like there's, I guess there has to be a line around hate speech or racism in whatever form. So I guess that's, in a way, that's relatively uniform. But then the figures like James Woods or whatever, who seem like they're just like old school conservatives, like that. They're not like even that particularly political. They're just like your uncle who's a bit different from you.
Right, yeah, the ubiquity of James Woods is kind of hilarious. You would think he was the most important person on earth. I mean, he's kind of like the spiritual opposite of Susan Sarandon. Like, he's responsible for everything. He keeps popping up in these discussions. They keep having long discussions about what to do with him. And we found this amazing one where they're like, well, he's not guilty this time, but we're going to hit him hard next VIO. So, that, which proves that the institution has like muscle memory, right? It isn't just looking individually at each case, it's remembering. And, that's one of the things that happened with Trump too.
Yeah, I guess that's another way of saying there is a bias, and a clear bias. I wonder...
Journalists are usually pretty aware of their bias and try to communicate that if possible. Also, Globus, I saw your message. I'll get back to you after stream.
Times, Matt, when we have these conversations, if the sort of culture war more broadly keeps us kind of throbbing in a space that's relatively convenient for power that transcends those kind of bounds. You know, when you consider like the judicial structures that prevent corporations' profits being impeded in foreign countries, when you consider the sort of the advancing power of unelected bodies like the WEF and the sort of established power of groups like the IMF, but when we're sort of fretting about James Woods' political perspectives, perhaps we're, you know, somewhat taking our eye off the ball.
Yeah,
that's fair-ish, but I mean, who's talking about James Woods like it's a problem? I'm kind of confused where this is coming from.
I think that's a big part of this whole story, which is you can kind of maybe justify there being some kind of involvement in suppressing this or that. I guess there's an argument for that, but they're doing it at a level that's so micro and so so ridiculously thorough that it can't possibly be anything but a dystopian project. I mean, they want to absolutely control or at least have some impact on basically every communication that happens on their platform, which is...
It's just wild to me that, like, the Patriot Act came and went and people largely shrugged their shoulders. You mean that organizations that are required to assess intent build a database of behavior in order to assess the current statement? Shocking. Yeah, exactly. Like, wow, artificial intelligence is good at profiling? Whoa, 1990s called, and they want their research back.
Which seems crazy to me.
Wow.
But
this is some real boomer energy.
I don't know about you, but that seems more in the realm of...
Also, can we talk about the fact that he is wearing Adidas, like a golden Adidas shirt with a hat, and his initials MT are in gold on the top? Like, that is very Trumpian. That is incredibly ridiculous. Like, could you imagine? Like, people call me MCC or whatever, like, because it was like an acronym, and I you know, like, I would wear a hat with that on it, like, you know what I mean? Like, maybe it's like a lapel on the side or something, or like, you know, little name tags, and people who are in the know, but bro, you going on a thing with millions of people putting on that hat, like,
Orwell to me.
Yeah, I suppose so, because I think that none of us, none of us, obviously some of us do, but like we're pretty anti all forms of racism and obviously anti-Semitism, but I feel that elsewhere in social media, literal far-right groups, because of convenient affiliations, even within the current conflict, are sort of promoted, celebrated, supported, given medals at Disneyland. You know, like there's an unwillingness to kind of allow yourself to fully inhabit the complexity of the world we find ourselves in, just the continual nomination of plain villains and overt baddies. And
this is old Russell Brand talking, the spiritual side of him. He's lost touch with it.
Kind of reductionism that can't lead to solutions because it doesn't take in anything like the necessary scale of the truth.
Yeah, you have to have...
Man, looking at his overlay, he's got like the wooden panels, top and bottom. He's really changed. He used to have like a really earthy vibe, and now it's like pretty limp-wristed.
Gradations of things in order to understand the world, and they're not really allowing that to happen. So, in any case, Russell, I apologize. I just got pinged about something. I've got to go. But this has been great to talk to you.
So yeah, so what do you think? Any actual hard questions? Russell Brand mostly just kind of, you know, talked them up a bit. It was like, wow, geez, man, you're really right about how important all this stuff is. All right, let's check out this article from October 28th. It's fantastic. I'll read like the most important bits, but it taught me a lot about how these, it's actually really short. Man, this is such a good article. But yeah, Nilay Patel like crammed in a whole bunch of information about how these companies work and make money. And yeah, I thought it'd be interesting to read it, especially in the context of Taby being like, wow, they regulate speech on these speech platforms, on these social media platforms. All right, here it is. You fucked up real good, kiddo. Twitter is a disaster clown car company that is successful despite itself, and there is no possible way to grow users and revenue without making a series of enormous compromises that will ultimately destroy your reputation and possibly cause grievous damage to your other companies. Prophetic. I say this with utter confidence because the problems with Twitter are not engineering problems. They are political problems. Twitter, the company, makes very little interesting technology. The tech stack is not the valuable asset. The asset is the user base. Hopelessly addicted politicians, reporters, celebrities, and other people who should know better but keep posting anyways. You, Elon Musk, are addicted to Twitter. You're the asset. You just bought yourself for $44 billion. The problem when the asset is people is that people are intensely complicated, and trying to regulate how people behave is historically a miserable experience, especially when that authority is vested in a single powerful individual. What I mean is that you are now the king of Twitter, and people think that you, personally, are responsible for everything that happens on Twitter now. It also turns out that absolute monarchs usually get M-worded when shit goes sideways. And sure enough, like, you know, we've seen this play out within a month. Elon is like, do you like me? Click yes or no. Like, okay, I guess you don't like me. I will no longer be CEO. Here are some examples. You can write as many polite letters to advertisers as you want, but you cannot reasonably expect to collect any meaningful advertising revenue if you do not promise those advertisers brand safety. That means you have to ban racism, sexism, transphobia, and all kinds of other speech that is totally legal in the US but reveals people to be total assholes. So you can make all the promises about free speech you want, but the dull reality is that you still have to ban a bunch of legal speech if you want to make money. And when you start doing that, your creepy new right-wing fanboys are going to viciously turn on you, just like they turn on every other social network that realizes the same essential truth. Citation, techdirt.com. Actually, there's a step before trying to get the ad money. It turns out that most people do not want to participate in horrible, unmoderated internet spaces full of shitty races and not all men fedora bullies. This is why Twitter is so small compared to its peers. When what most people want from social media is to have nice experiences and to feel validated all the time. They want to live at Disney World. So if you want more people to join Twitter and actually post tweets, you have to make the experience much, much more pleasant, which means moderating more aggressively. Again, every alternative social network has learned this lesson the hard way, like over and over and over again. 3 different citations. Jason Miller's Getter, yeah, that failed. Parler, yeah, and Truth Social, running to the same problems. I think Truth Social was funny because it got filled with hentai porn. Ahegeo, or however you pronounce it. Ahegeo. Also, everyone crying about free speech conveniently ignores that the biggest threat to free speech in America is the fucking government, which seems completely bored of the First Amendment. They're out here banning books, Elon. President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump have identical policy positions on Section 230. They both want to repeal it. Wow, really? Holy shit. Do you know why? Because the First Amendment prohibits them from making explicit speech regulations. So they keep threatening to repeal the law that allows social networks to even exist in order to exert indirect pressure on content policy. It's not subtle. I love how hard she goes in this one. She's so good. State governments are even less subtle. Both Texas and Florida have passed speech regulations that overtly tell social media companies how to moderate, in open hostility to the First Amendment. Figuring out how to comply with these laws is not an engineering problem, not least because compliance might be impossible. It is a legal problem because these laws are blatantly unconstitutional, and the only appropriate response to them is to tell the government to shut up and go away. A big problem here is that the courts are pretty stupid about the internet. Surprise, surprise. A challenge to these laws, partially funded by Twitter, is headed to the Supreme Court, which is the polar opposite of a predictable system. It is a group of uncool weirdos, hey, weirdos, with lifetime appointments that can radically reshape American life however it wants, and they're set to do so in the next couple months. You can't deploy AI at this problem. You have to go out and defend the actual First Amendment against the bad laws in Texas and Florida, whose taxes you like and whose governors you seem pretty fond of. So many citations in this. Are you ready for what that looks like? Are you ready to sit before Congress and politely decline to engage in their content capture sessions for hours on end, like Zuckerberg did, and still he produced lots of content? Are you ready to do any of this without the incredibly respected policy experts whose leader you first harassed and then fired? This is what you signed up for. It's way more boring than rockets, cars, and rockets with cars on them. And it gets worse the second you leave the US. Germany is a huge market for Tesla. Are you going to flout Germany's speech laws? I would bet not. The Indian government basically demands social media companies provide potential hostages in order to operate in that country. You can't engineer your way out of that shit. Are you ready to experience the pressure Twitter faces in the Middle East to block and restrict accounts? Are you ready for the fact that the Iranian government will fucking M-word people over their social media posts? Are you ready for how Twitter is being used by Iranians protesting that government right now? Which is also a crazy story we should cover more. Are you excited for the Chinese government to find ways to threaten Tesla's huge business in that country over content that appears on Twitter? Like, oh, I don't know, footage that's been coming out of Chinese hospitals showing a mass amount of people are succumbing to a new variant of COVID, and it's news of it's largely being suppressed and we're not talking about it. The essential truth of every social network is that the product is content moderation. This is the part that matters. The whole of 30 minutes we watched of Taby and Russell Brand like wringing their hands, it's because they did not understand this truth. The essential truth of every social network is that the product is content moderation. And everyone hates the people who decide how content moderation works. Content moderation is what Twitter makes. It is the thing that defines the user experience. It's what YouTube makes. It's what Instagram makes. It's what TikTok makes. They all try to incentivize the good stuff, disincentivize the bad stuff, and delete the really bad stuff. Do you know why YouTube videos are all 8 to 10 minutes long? Because that's how long a video has to be to qualify for a second ad slot in the middle. That's content moderation, baby. YouTube wants a certain kind of video, and it created incentives to get it. That's the business you're in now. The longer you fight it or pretend that you can sell something else, the more Twitter will drag you into the deepest possible muck of defending indefensible speech. And if you turn on the dime and accept that growth requires aggressive content moderation and pushing back against government speech regulations around the country and world, well, we'll see how your fans react to that. Anyway, welcome to hell. This was your idea. Chef's kiss. Holds up. Absolutely prophetic. October 28th. This is 2 months old. And, yeah, nailed it. Absolutely nailed this post. Am I following her? I should be following her. Yeah. Or him. Oh, Nilay's a dude. Oh, what do I know? What do I know, chat? I don't know jack shit. I recognize good journalism. That's all I can say. Okay, we're moving on. Apparently, Ron Paul wants us to get rid of the FBI, everybody. We're getting rid of the FBI. And we've got the Elon Musk Barry Weiss conflict, which is super funny. So we'll get into that. But I think there's also, yeah, part 7 and part 8 of the Twitter files. We've done almost every one of them. They've been incredibly mid, very disappointing, to be honest. I have not had a single moment where I was like, wow, no way, are you really? Oh, geez, I'm glad you're doing this story. That's, holy cow, that's incredible. But hey, I gotta go to the washroom real quick. So I want to put on something really briefly. This is something, oh man, I don't know if I want to, that's pretty heavy, man. Oh, geez. There's some heavy news coming out of Canada. I don't know what's going on, but we've had some crazy stuff happen in the last little bit. It's kind of depressing. Okay, there's some Logan Paul news. I know that he's been in the news. Let's watch a bit of this for like 5 minutes. I'm just gonna go to the washroom, get some water and stuff, hydration check. But Logan Paul's been in the news. CoffeeZilla did like this big investigation of him and his like crypto zoo or whatever the scam is. So we'll watch some Philip DeFranco. I'll be right back.
Paul getting exposed after angering Jesus and the crypto gods. Elon Musk dispelling the myth that billionaires are smart. Messi 100%ing soccer, but now finding himself in the midst of controversy. With all that and so much more on today's season finale of the Philip DeFranco Show. This is likely the last full Philip DeFranco Show before Monday, January 2nd, though you'll be getting daily shorts from me in the interim. But hey, buckle up, hit that like button for surviving another year together, and let's just jump into it. Would it really feel like the the end or beginning of a year if there wasn't a Logan Paul controversy. And he's seemingly upping his game by being in 2 controversies at once, at least 2 that are getting attention. So for the first part, we're going to talk about his controversy in the world of crypto. Because over the weekend, CoffeeZilla, or I'll call him Steven, released the first in a 3-part video series about Logan Paul and his blockchain game project called CryptoZoo. So in the first part of this deep dive investigation that he says took over a year to complete, he goes into the details of how he says CryptoZoo and Logan Paul scammed people out of millions of dollars. I'm going to be covering his highlights. If you want to see the full thing, of course, link down below as always. But here's a TLDR. Logan Paul announces the game on his podcast Impulsive back in August of last year, saying there was a massive team behind it with hand-drawn art and $1 million out of pocket. So when people saw it, they jumped on it, which I also think makes sense because as far as creators go, I feel like he was the creator that kind of mainstreamed NFTs to YouTube audiences. But with this, CoffeeZilla interviewed several of the investors of this game and found that the amount of money they put into it was astounding.
How much did you guys make from CryptoZoo?
I lost around $50,000 in CryptoZoo.
I lost $40,000.
I lost around 15,000 US dollars.
I lost $25,000.
$120,000. $500,000 Australian.
So what's this game anyway?
You started by buying this crypto token called Zoo, which is their in-game currency, and you use Zoo coins to then buy egg NFTs, which you can then hatch to become animals. You then can breed those 2 animals to become hybrid animals. You can then burn your animal NFTs to release the zoo they earned back to you, and from there you can invest it into eggs or just cash out.
And there's the general structure of how it's supposed to function, but when the game launched, the passive yield didn't even work. With CoffeeZilla doing an interview with one of the people who lost money and found something interesting.
It wasn't even written into the contract where it showed that you were actually yielding Zoo, but there was nothing that was actually, backing that up. There was no way to claim your yield. There never was.
So you reportedly had people like Rob losing hundreds of thousands of dollars into this game. When the game did launch and so many people realized the issues with it, they said Logan Paul went radio silent, completely abandoning the project for another. And in CoffeeZilla's video, he dives into the question of what happened to the $1 million that Logan claimed that he and his team spent out of pocket. Was it the artist for the handmade art that Logan was so proud of?
It's quick to make a digital asset with, unique, randomly generated characteristics. We handmade art for the past 6 months, bro. Approval, very specific notes, 10 different artists making art for our project.
Well, CoffeeZilla pointed out that when the art team of CryptoZoo started releasing teasers, they were actually just Adobe stock images of animals smushed together. And in a rare moment where someone actually asked Logan about the game, he says that its issues were because the lead developer held the code hostage. So CoffeeZilla talked to this lead developer who claimed that Logan and CryptoZoo never paid him, and that's why he took the code.
I just kind of spent like a month just trying to negotiate and get something figured out where I would finally get paid, because I'm on my end, I have a team of 30 engineers. I'm earning $50,000 a week on building this thing. And the only thing they brought to the table were a bunch of Photoshop changes.
And another developer on the project saying the same thing, that they were not paid for their work on CryptoZoo. So then you have CoffeeZilla trying to follow up on these accusations with Logan's manager, Jeff, who started with the standard no comment. And then when Steven pressed the issue, he started saying some kind of weird, vague things about legality, some saying there were just thinly veiled threats to sue.
Obviously, I don't want to just run a story. If you guys have a whole side to your story here.
Your job as someone that is reporting news is to actually verify correct news.
Right, that's why I'm calling you.
So I'm just telling you, legally, you have to report correct news with verifiable information.
Right, that's why I'm calling you.
If you do not verify truth, then you're just allegations, and those then will be handled the way that we want to handle it.
Wait, so you're saying you refuse to give me proof that the allegations aren't true, but if I report on the allegations, you guys might sue.
No. No, I did not say that. I did not say that.
All right, I'm trying to read between the lines.
With CoffeeZilla then leaving us on a cliffhanger about someone else being involved in this whole mess, saying that an Eddie Ibanez spoke directly with the developers, not Logan. Now with this, I've seen some messages asking me to get Logan on to talk about this, but I've said the same thing to CoffeeZilla. The only way that I would do that, even if Logan was game, would be if I could have Steven on the call as well, because I know fuck all about NFTs. But for now, we're gonna have to wait to watch CoffeeZilla's next part. But as far as what we do know about the game is that it doesn't look like it's even available. Its website saying it's undergoing upgrades to the core infrastructure. Yeah. With this, of course, I'd love to know your thoughts in general.
Watching a streamer watch a streamer watch
in the CryptoZoo launch as well. Though,
hey, I am contributing valuable entertainment by showing you this lovely butter tart that I'm gonna have for snack. Do you guys have these in your country where you're from? This is a really Canadian. We're calling it a delicacy, okay? But you make a homemade pastry, and then you fill it with corn syrup. and then you bake it. It's incredible. It's incredible. It's delicious. Also, how you been, Milk Toast?
Oh,
And
like
we're only doing a brief break so I can eat and hydrate before we launch into the Twitter files, which requires a lot of glottals.
Not just one story today, there were
And
two reasons
enunciation.
Logan was in the news. With Logan having been under fire for the past few days for his comments that he made towards his friend George
I
about
think
his
so.
religion. Right, George is his friend and co-host, and in a recent episode
so.
of Impulsive, Logan and George go into this heated debate about religion and Christianity.
They call them sugar tarts in America, but pecan tarts, butter tarts, these are a Canadian invention.
I think it's a silly practice to engage in, and I think it deserves satire.
Also, any
like, come
thoughts
on.
on this?
Yeah, but that's not.
subscribe to a doctrine that slams homosexuality. Come on, bro. That's ridiculous.
I mean, again, we've talked about this.
Just am definitely questioning why we have to perpetuate a belief that is fucking silly.
I agree, but you bashing me in front of a group of people for my beliefs is not right.
And amid all
I'm
the
with him on
conversation,
that.
you have George calling Logan out.
Like I did I had a new atheist phase, and I would have been in the Logan Paul camp maybe for a few years of my most edgy years, but like the problem is that you don't convince people of anything by icing them out and making them feel embarrassed for their deeply held religious beliefs. It's way better just to like connect with those people on the human level, and then they'll be like, wow, there are people who are not in my religion who share the same humanist values, golly gee willikers, and like, yeah, that's way better. But this whole like, you're a silly person for believing in Jesus is like, nah, like religious beliefs go deep, man. They go deep. Like goes like, what if like all of your grandparents since like the time of ever believed in a thing? Like you can't just so easily cut that cord. Come on.
Genuinely, like, I know people that hate me, that treat me better about my faith than you, and you're my best friend.
Wow.
So the video was posted, and oh shit, did people have things to say. Saying things like, I hate how Logan Paul can mock Christianity and Jesus and not get canceled, but if he were to do that to Allah or the Muslim religion or Judaism, then he would be canceled immediately. Why are Christians stepped on and trashed with no consequences? As well as Logan Paul is one of many who walk.
That's awesome. The Christian being like, we're being discriminated against, brother. That's the real crime of the century.
Over Christianity. I lost all my respect for him, and all I'm doing is praying for him. But also, important to note, it wasn't just one-sided. There were many jumping to Logan's defense as well. With people saying things like Christians finding out what atheists are in 2022 during this whole Logan Paul hating on Christianity situation is crazy. He isn't even hating on it. I may add that George is taking it way too seriously as well, saying
He was hating on it. He's calling the belief silly.
Your religion to yourself and accept other people's opinion. As well as this is the hilarity of Christianity. They clutch their pearls when called out, only to then open their mouths and prove Logan Paul right. Logan Paul was spitting facts. Clutch your pearls if you want. It doesn't make him wrong about this. And so where I'll leave you with this situation is, what are your thoughts here? Which camp do you land in and why? And then, Avatar: The Way of Water bombed.
Okay. We don't care about that. Let's get to the fun part. I guess I don't get to eat. Oh, but look at this, chat. Oh man, this is peak butter tart. It's just like dripping. Oh my god. Okay. All right. Michael Schellenberger. On previous episodes, were you calling that episodes? In previous broadcasts, we've gone deep on the Schellenberger guy, and he's full of shit already. No, I didn't make them. They're actually, normally my mom makes them, but she's been swamped, and she bought them, and I couldn't believe it because the pastry was handmade. Like, somebody is making really fatty Canadian treats like chocolate macaroons and butter tarts and selling them at like, yeah, a good profit. Nothing wrong with being Christian, a lot of wrong with being a bigot and excusing it with religion. People conflate the two. Yeah, exactly. In the same way that like I can find some parts of Buddhism or Taoism or even Christianity appealing to me, that doesn't mean I'm a full-fledged Buddhist, Taoist, or Christian, right? Like, you know, like you don't have to go that hard in the paint. I'm really liking that phrase. I gotta get off it. Hard in the paint. I don't even know where it's from. Okay, but let's get into this. Schellenberger is not the most reliable reporter. We have caught him in, I don't want to say a lie, but in a gross mischaracterization of the facts. He tried to play off that carbon emissions were down, that they were trending down, and I know he did it in 2021, but they're down because, of course, COVID and everybody inside their homes, and now they bounced right back up. So he sort of focused in, ignored all the evidence outside of it, all the context, drilled really close in and said, look, everybody, CO2 emissions aren't that bad. Climate alarmists are full of shit. And then you actually look at the data set and you're like, dude, you took like 1 year out of 50. Like, this is insanely embarrassing. Like, am I supposed to treat you seriously? Come on. Like, Jesus. So I have a very dim view of this Michael Schellenberger guy. I think he's a shill. And bad at his job, more importantly. Okay, Twitter Files, Part 7. Let's get some music going. Drop it a bit. Sorry. No, I kind of did want to do some baking. I made some Brussels sprouts last night that were really tasty. Okay, let's get into it. Twitter Files, Part 7. The FBI and the Hunter Biden laptop. Yeah, brother. Let's go, truck, yeah. How the FBI and intelligence community discredited factual information about Hunter Biden's foreign business dealings both after and before the New York Post revealed the contents of his laptop on October 14th, 2020. In Twitter Files number 6, we saw the FBI relentlessly seek to exercise influence over Twitter, including over its content, its users, and its data. I'm pretty sure we read that thread, and it was more like they had meetings. Baking stream? I used to do a regular cooking stream called Rich Food for Poor Folk, and you'd put a lot of labor into some shitty ingredients and make a nice meal. So I'd be down for that, but I can't smoke weed inside my mother's home. She's very severe about that. It's cool that she's okay with me smoking copious amounts of dope all the time, but probably rude for me to stink up her apartment or her house or whatever. Okay, so already off to a bad start. In Twitter Files number 7, we present evidence pointing to an organized effort by representatives of the intelligence community, the IC, aimed at senior executives at news and social media companies to discredit leaked information about Hunter Biden before and after it was published. Wait a minute, are you telling me the intelligence community had some information that they couldn't make available to Twitter? Like, they couldn't disclose how they knew this information was discredited? Whoa, spies not giving you the full story? Stop. The story begins in December 2019, when a Delaware computer store owner named John Paul Mac Isaac, or JP, contacts the FBI about a laptop that Hunter Biden had left with him. On December 9th, 2019, the FBI issues a subpoena for and takes Hunter Biden's laptop. By August 2020, Mac Isaac still had not heard back from the FBI. Why would he? Even though he had discovered evidence of criminal activity. Help me out here. Help me understand this line, everybody. What is he? What? What? I'm sorry. I think there's somebody you forgot to inform. FBI, are you doing your job right? You didn't tell me about you didn't update me as to the status of your investigation, and I called you and told you about it, So this Mac Isaac guy emails Rudy Giuliani, who was under FBI surveillance at the time. This stinks to high hell. In early October, Giuliani gives it to the New York Post. Wow, it almost seems like there's an information campaign going on here. Shortly before 7 p.m. Eastern, on October 13th, Hunter Biden's lawyer, George Mesraes, emails JP Mac Isaac. Hunter and Mesraes had just learned from the New York Post that its story about the laptop would be published the next day. So here it is. Hey, John Paul, thank you for speaking with me. I'm a lawyer for Hunter Biden. Appreciate you reviewing your records on this matter. At 9:22 p.m., FBI Special Agent Elvis Chan sends 10 documents to Twitter's then head of site integrity, Yoel Roth, through Teleporter, a one-way communications channel from the FBI to Twitter. Twitter folks, heads up, I'll be sending a Teleporter link for you to download 10 documents. It is not spam. Please confirm receipt when you get it. Thanks. Received and downloaded. The next day, October 14th, 2020, the New York Post runs its explosive story revealing the business deals of President Joe Biden's son, Hunter. Every single fact in it was accurate. When I tried to read it, like, it was such a disorganized mess. I was not impressed. I was just like, this is not it. This is a pretty weak story. So good. Okay. And yet, within hours, Twitter and other social media companies censor the New York Post article, preventing it from spreading, and most importantly, undermining its credibility in the minds of many Americans. Why is that? What exactly happened? Can we get like some scary music? Ba, 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 ba. On December 2nd, Matt Taibbi described the debate inside Twitter over its decision to censor a wholly accurate article. Since then, we have discovered new info that points to an organized effort by the Intel community to influence Twitter and other platforms. First, it's important to understand that Hunter Biden earned tens of millions of dollars in contracts with foreign businesses, including ones linked to China's government, for which Hunter offered no real work. Here's an overview by investigative journalist Peter Schweitzer. Okay.
Well, what we know is that the Biden family has benefited from commercial deals overseas to the tune of tens of millions of dollars. That's not in dispute. That's based on the so-called suspicious activity reports that the Treasury Department has released because a U.S. Senate committee asked for it. These documents show the flow of funds from Russian, Ukrainian, and Chinese sources, among others. So we know there's been a flow of funds. We also know that the people sending that money have very close relationships with the government. So in the case of China, for example, which I believe is the most troubling of the group of foreign donors, you can actually look on the Hunter Biden laptop and find the businessmen who secured these deals for Hunter Biden. There are four gentlemen that are named. If you look at those four gentlemen, each and every one of them has close ties to the highest levels of Chinese intelligence. So, for example, one gentleman who he calls the super chairman, at the same time that Hunter Biden secures a deal with him that translates into about $20 million, that same Chinese businessman is business partners with the Vice Minister of State Security in China, who is responsible for foreign recruitments. This has been reported in Hong Kong. This is not just Peter Schweitzer saying it. So you have the flow of funds. You have the flow of funds from foreign parties that are linked to the government and intelligence services. And then you have the third component of this, which is there's no discernible service or product or anything that Hunter Biden has brought to the table. So the question has to be asked, why are foreign actors like these four businessmen in China arranging deals worth tens of millions of dollars to the Bidens and not getting anything in return? And what's important to point out here is that Hunter Biden is the one who's the signatory on these deals, but the laptop also shows that money is fungible within the Biden family. We know that $2 million that arrived from China ended up with his uncle, James Biden. And we also know that Hunter Biden paid some of his father's bills while he was vice president of the United States. So this is not a Hunter Biden question. This is a larger Biden family question.
Ah, the Biden crime family.
Now, one of the things that I hear from Democrats is that they say, well, you know, this is kind of common. And look, the Trump family had all sorts of business dealings with Russia. Is that true?
So the Trump family does actually have some deals in China, although they kind of were unwinding.
Is this guy going to bring up Moscow Tower? Let's see if he does it.
And I raised questions about that and some of the finance deals that Jared Kushner was involved in the Middle East. And those need scrutiny. They need analysis. And by the way, they were scrutinized by the mainstream media. So that's a good thing. The Biden deals weren't, but there's also a critical, crucial difference here in my mind.
Like, didn't Trump just get convicted on like tax fraud in New York or something? Like what?
And that is,
those things really need scrutiny. And it's like, yeah, he was convicted in court.
The deals that the Trumps had with China, the one that really translated into money was a deal that Ivanka Trump had for the manufacturing of shoes and other things in her apparel line. That was a line started, 10, 15 years ago. My point being, those were actual legitimate businesses that predate any involvement in. You certainly watch them and be aware of them and take them into account. With the Bidens, we're not talking about that. Hunter Biden, after his father becomes vice president of the United States, suddenly decides he's going to go into international finance, ill-defined. He has no background. He has no experience. And he's not doing deals in London or Tokyo. He immediately goes to Russia, China, and Ukraine for the.
It's gonna be really funny to like go through all this hullabaloo for Hunter Biden, and then we'll get to the Trump tax return. Excuse me, the Trump tax returns, and be like, oh, maybe we're looking in the wrong area here.
Those deals. So I believe all foreign deals should be scrutinized, but you have to differentiate, in my mind, the difference between, say, Michael Bloomberg, who his company Bloomberg has major business dealings in China, which need to be watched, but that's a legitimate business. You cannot compare that to Rosemont Seneca Partners, which is frankly, in a large extent, a fictitious business entity that was funneling money to Hunter Biden and his family.
Peter Schweitzer.
Now, what about Trump's relationship with Russia?
Yeah,
well, there was no question. There were discussions, and there was a sort of verbal agreement to build a Trump Tower in Moscow.
Peter Schweitzer is the president of the Government Accountability Institute, senior editor-at-large of far-right media organization Breitbart. Schweitzer wrote Clinton Cash, a 2015 book discussing donations made to the Clinton Foundation by foreign entities and Bill and Hillary Clinton's income after they left the White House in 2001. This is from his Wikipedia page. Journalists and fact-checking organizations have criticized the book for speculation, conclusions not supported by the evidence presented, and for factual errors which were corrected in the Kindle edition. Hey, it's almost like this guy's completely full of shit. Legitimate business. Yeah, I mean, part of the reason I like watching people who are clearly grifters is like trying to figure out where the lie is. Like, it is not easy. It is always difficult. It's always like, oh, they didn't include this piece of information, or the way they're framing it, or they're both siding. There's always like something going on here. And this is like presented as like, look at this legit journalist who did all this hard work of tracing, you know, dark money deals. And then you like look into his bio and it's like, yeah, this guy lies all the time. Like, you can't trust him for real shit.
But there was no real exchange of money in that case. And again, I would say, look, that deserves scrutiny.
And that's what happened with Michael Schellenberger. Like, it took actually way longer, I have to admit. It took almost an hour to figure out, or maybe 30 minutes, that Schellenberger was full of shit when it came to climate scientists, even though he's pro climate change. And this guy, it took like all of 10 seconds. Like, it's embarrassing, man.
But Donald Trump actually has built hotels and condos around the world. Certainly, it's not appropriate to be doing that while you're a candidate or president of the United States. But to somehow put that in a nefarious light when you're ignoring a business that has no history that predates your father being vice president of the United States.
Okay, this is bad. We're going to move on. This is very, very unimpressive. Very, very bad. Yeah, it's not that big a deal, though. You know, Saudis and Russian nationals taking up hotel rooms at Mar-a-Lago while he was. Can we pull up that? What was that moment at Mar-a-Lago where there was like people using their phones to like light up documents? The Shinzo Abe meeting. That's right. He invites Shinzo Abe, and then like there's not enough lights. It is a top secret meeting, and people are bringing their. There it is. It's such a good photo. It's so good. It's so funny. Oh man. Here, let me get rid of this. Oh man, it will never not make me laugh. Just national security breach. No big deal. And phones could do more things.
North Korea hailing its weak.
All right. I'm pretty sure the joke's over. Let's move on. Okay. Just gonna fix the framing. No one speaks without an agenda, and language analysis is a key component to identifying what is being sold. No one speaks without an agenda, and language analysis is a key Yeah, I see what you're saying, Globus. Like, yeah, you spend enough time, especially with how much power journalism is having and how it's being sort of like sucked up by AI or right-wingers or whatever. The thing I find so interesting is like, it's like swimming through different oceans. You really have to know your memes, know your history, know like the context when talking with conservatives, because they won't explain or unpack all any of it with you. And it's similar like on the left, where like if you're not really familiar with, let's say, like how to not be transphobic, and you're just like being a blundering fool, like left wingers will jump down your throat for it. And like there's good reasons for that, but it's also like sometimes just like ices people out, or becomes intolerable, or pick something that's different than that. Like even climate change is another good example, where like libs are so obsessed with how the facts are on their side that they've forgotten that just presenting the facts doesn't necessarily change people's minds, and it becomes like really like aggressive and not really helpful. But yeah, I really love like taking apart. I had such a good night last night hanging out with my niece playing with Chat GPT. It was crazy, like the language. We were asking all sorts of crazy questions. I can't wait for that to be like the new big thing. But here we go. Michael Schellenberger cites this journalist about Hunter Biden's earning tens of millions of dollars in contracts with foreign businesses, and says, and yet, during all of 2020, the FBI and other law enforcement agencies repeatedly primed Yoel Roth to dismiss reports of Hunter Biden's laptop or as a Russian hack and leak operation. This is from a sworn declaration by Roth given in December 2020. Since 2018, I've had regular meetings with the DNI, Department of Homeland Security, FBI, industry peers. During these weekly meetings, the federal law enforcement agencies communicated that they expected hack and leak operations by state actors, which might occur in the period shortly before the 2020 presidential election, likely in October, like the October surprise, which definitely happened. I personally came across like some stories that I ended up believing that were, not actually legit. Oh, geez. Sorry, my framing's so bad. I'm not used to MacBooks. I'm not used to this silly MacBook. Okay, moving on. They did the same to Facebook, according to Mark Zuckerberg. Quote, the FBI basically came to us and was like, hey, you should be on high alert. We thought that there was a lot of Russian propaganda in 2016 election. There's about to be some kind of dump similar to that. No, you don't say. Oh, geez, really? No, the Russians want to influence American democracy? That doesn't sound like them. Why would they do that?
The background here is the FBI, I think, basically came to us, some folks on our team, and was like, hey, just so you know, like, you should be on high alert. We thought that there was a lot of Russian propaganda in the 2016 election. We have it on notice that basically there's about to be some kind of dump of that's similar to that. The background here is the FBI, I think, basically came to us, some folks on our team, and was like, hey, just so you know, like, you should be on high alert. We thought that there was a lot of Russian propaganda in the 2016 election. We have it on notice that basically there's about to be some kind of dump of that's similar to that. The background here,
I mean, like, all of these, they're all saying the same thing. That should tell you that there's like some sort of, I don't know, law that you should be citing, maybe from 2017. 14. Were the FBI warnings of a Russian hack and leak operation relating to Hunter Biden based on any new intel? No, they weren't. Quote, through our investigations, we did not see any similar competing intrusions to what had happened in 2016, admitted FBI agent Elvis Chan. And let's read the highlighted bit. There's the quote. So although from our standpoint we had not seen anything, we specifically, in an abundance of caution, warned the companies in case they saw something we did not. Literally just... He clip-chimped it. Jesus. You missed the abundance of caution. This is bad, man. Okay, question. Did you repeatedly warn them at these meetings that you anticipated there might be hack and dump operations? Russian-initiated hack and dump operations, Mr. Sir. Objection. Vague. Assumes facts not on the record. The witness. So repeatedly, I would say, can you ask your question like, what do you mean by repeatedly? Like 100 times? 5 times? By Mr. Sauer. Well, did you do it more than once? Answer. I did it more, yes. I warned the companies about a potential for hack and dump operations from the Russians and the Iranians on more than one occasion, although I cannot recollect how many times. Question. Did anybody else at the FBI talk about hack and dump Russian operations? Answer. From my recollection, other senior officials, to include Section Chief Demlow, likely mentioned the possibility of hack and dump operations. I'm not sure what the, like, yes, okay, you made that point. The FBI talks to social media companies about possible national security problems. Seems based. Holy shit, I'm pro FBI right now, chat. 15. Indeed, Twitter executives repeatedly reported very little Russian activity. Example, on September 24th, 2020, Twitter told FBI it had removed 345 largely inactive accounts linked to previous coordinated Russian hacking attempts. They had little reach and low follower accounts. Okay, cool. So, good thing we're taking it seriously, I guess. The feds have been confirmed. Oh no. Or what, you saying I'm a fed? I'm not a fed. I'm too sweet and polite. Anyways, I'm Canadian. So I can't possibly be a spy or a foreign national. Don't force me to declare myself on FARA. 16. In fact, Twitter debunked false claims by journalists of foreign influence on its platform. Quote, we haven't seen any evidence to support that claim by _@ NBC News of foreign-controlled bots. Our review thus far shows a small-scale domestic troll effort. Let me just fix the framing here. I might just have to make this whole thing bigger. Out of an abundance of caution, this is the one that we read before, and then it continues on underneath. We haven't seen any evidence to support that claim. Our review thus far shows a small-scale domestic troll effort that was amplified in some creative ways by real people, but not a significant bot or foreign agent. From Yol. Okay, so looks like they asked them to check, and they done did. And then we have this news story. White nationalist group posing as anti-fur called for violence on Twitter. Okay, so it was domestic terrorists. Not really sure how this is really the own you think it is, but okay, we're moving on. We will get through this Twitter file, and we will learn something eventually, I'm sure. I'm sure we'll find out something. I'm sure. After FBI asks about a Washington Post story on alleged foreign influence in a pro-Trump tweet, Twitter's Roth says, quote, the article makes a lot of insinuations, but we saw no evidence that that was the case here. And in fact, a lot of strong evidence pointing in the other direction. Whoa. Golly. Good thing that the FBI got them to, like, look into it. You know, didn't just do something without the input from... Alright, let's see here. I'm not sure I want to read all these emails. It's getting annoying having to reframe. And this is black voters are being targeted in disinformation campaigns, echoing the 2016 Russian playbook. And apparently, according to the email, I can confirm that the account in question is domestic in origin. The article makes a lot of insinuations about foreign interference, but we saw no evidence here. And it's about one specific account went dem to rep. Okay, then. 18. It's not the first time that Twitter's Roth has pushed back against the FBI. In January of 2020, Roth resisted FBI efforts to get Twitter to share data outside of the normal search warrant process. Based. Cool. Okay. 19. Pressure had been growing. Quote, we have seen a sustained, if uncoordinated effort by the IC to push us to share more info and change our API policies. They are probing and pushing everywhere they can, including by whispering to congressional staff. Wait, are you telling me the FBI wanted to, like, accrue more power for themselves? No, not the FBI. They wouldn't do that. That doesn't sound like them. Wait, hold up. Are the FBI power hungry? 20. Time and again, FBI asks Twitter for evidence of foreign influence, and Twitter responds that they aren't finding anything worth reporting. Quote, we haven't yet identified activity that we typically refer to you or even flag as interesting in the foreign influence context. And this is sent 2020, June 26th. Despite Twitter's pushback, the FBI repeatedly requests information from Twitter that Twitter has already made clear it will not share outside of normal legal channels. Then, in July 2020, the FBI's Elvis Chan arranges for temporary top-secret security clearances for Twitter executives so that the FBI can share information about threats to the upcoming election. On August 11, 2020, the FBI's Chan shares information with Twitter's Roth relating to the Russian hacking organization APT-28 through the FBI's secure one-way communications channel, Teleporter. Recently, Yoel Roth told Kara Swisher that he had been primed to think about the Russian hacking group APT-28 before news of the Hunter Biden laptop came out. When it did, Roth said, quote, "It set off every single one of my finely tuned APT-28 hack and leap campaign alarm bells." Oh, this is painful. This is so painful. This is so painful to watch.
We learn about DC leaks, and we learn about the intersection between APT-28, a unit of Russian military intelligence, a hacking group. And so the morning of the Hunter Biden story in the New York Post happens, and it was weird, right? We didn't know what to believe. We didn't know what was true. There was smoke, and ultimately for me, it didn't reach a place where I was comfortable removing this content from Twitter. But it set off every single one of my finely tuned APT-28 hack and leak campaign alarm bells.
So it looked possibly problematic.
Everything about it looked like a hack and leak. We learn about DC.
So one of the things in like the research for like how to change people's beliefs is that once someone believes like a myth, it's really hard to like get them to unbelieve the myth and understand the fact. But one way that you can like kind of keep people from going down the rabbit hole of a conspiracy theory is that you can inoculate them. You can sort of get them ready to be a bit more skeptical about information that they might come into. And this is proves sort of kind of effective. And that's what I'm reading here is like the FBI are like aware that there's this group out there, they have particular tactics that might be new, and they need to make this executive understand what the heck they're talking about without actually like giving them real top secret. That's why their top secret was temporary. It's just enough to open the window and be like, you need to know about this stuff, it's sophisticated. And he's like, yeah, okay, now I see it. Okay, let's see how Schellenberger twists this. In August 2020, FBI's Chan asked Twitter, does anyone there have top secret clearance? When someone mentions Jim Baker, which has become a bad name in conservative media, Chan responds, quote, I don't know how I forgot him. An odd claim, given Chan's job is to monitor Twitter, not to mention that they work together at the FBI. Okay. This sounds like an argument from incredulity. But okay. 26. Who is Jim Baker? He's former general counsel of the FBI 2014 to 18, and one of the most powerful men in the U.S. intel community. Baker has moved in and out of government for 30 years, serving stints at CNN, Bridgewater, a $140 billion asset management firm, and Brookings. Okay. As general counsel of the FBI, Baker played a central role in making the case internally for an investigation of Donald Trump. Based. It's almost like stealing national security. Oh no, this is 2016? I mean, Trump has always been a national security issue. Like, constantly. It's actually insane. Alright, moving on. Baker wasn't the only senior FBI executive involved in the Trump investigation to go to Twitter. Don Burton, the former deputy chief of staff to FBI head James Comey, who initiated the investigation of Trump and Hillary Clinton, joined Twitter in 2019 as director of strategy. As of 2020, there were so many former FBI employees, Boo alumni, working at Twitter that they had created their own private Slack channel and a crib sheet to onboard new FBI rivals. Wowee! Are you kidding me? It's almost like there's not a lot of people with these skills, and it's going to be a pretty small pool of candidates. Golly gee. How many employees at Twitter again? 30. Efforts continue to influence Twitter's Yoel Roth. In September 2020, Roth participated in an Aspen Institute tabletop exercise on a potential hack and dump operation relating to Hunter Biden. The goal was to shape how the media covered it and how social media carried it. I love how, like, in this thread, Michael Schellenberger completely glossed over how we actually got the Hunter Biden story. Conservatives get really uncomfortable when you really drill on this. Like, so he got the laptop, okay? So Hunter Biden dropped the laptop at a laptop repair spot, and then he forgets it, I guess, and so the laptop repair shop goes through emails, sends it to Giuliani, who's under FBI investigation, who then sends it to the FBI. Like, I'm supposed to take this seriously? Like, are you for real? The organizer was Vivian Schiller, the former CEO of NPR, former head of news at Twitter, former general manager of New York Times, former chief digital officer of NBC News. So you know this person's full of shit. Like, what? Attendees included Meta FBI's head of security policy and the top national security reporters for New York Times, WAPO, and others. Sounds like serious people. Serious people in the room to talk about serious business. Golly geez. I think they're just jealous they weren't in that room. By mid-September 2020, Chan and Roth had set up an encrypted messaging network so employees from FBI and Twitter could communicate. They also agreed to create a virtual war room for all the internet industry plus FBI and ODNI, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. Then, on September 15th, 2020, the FBI's Laura Demlow, who heads up the Foreign Influence Task Force, and Elvis Chan request to give a classified briefing for Jim Baker without any other Twitter staff, such as Yoel Roth, present. And I think I had, like, a tweet from a conservative I respect, which is Counterpoints. And he's going to make a lot out of this. There was a private meeting with Jim Baker. Who forgets their laptop? I don't know. I don't know, Bella. It seems... Yeah, can I get my very sensitive laptop with all of my secrets of business dealings fixed? And then forget about it? I don't know. It's Hunter Biden. He does drugs and beds beautiful women in jacuzzis with champagne. 34. On October 14th, shortly after the New York Post publishes its Hunter Biden laptop story, Roth says, quote, "It isn't clearly violative of our hacked materials policy, nor is it clearly in violation of anything else, but adds, this feels a lot like a somewhat subtle leak operation." And the analogy I came up with here was like, people who are in the position of regulating or applying the rules are aware when people are circumventing those rules or trying to get around them. Like, it seems sane. Can't believe I'm 2 hours late. You don't have an excuse, Barely Political. You're how do I say, you're in Britain, aren't you? Like, shouldn't you be wide awake? I'm never 2 hours late. That's okay. The intro is less exciting on the Mac. I don't have like all sorts of crazy videos going or my fun overlay. But you missed some good news. Golly geez, you missed Russell Brand and Matt Taibbi doing the journalism. It was kind of embarrassing. 35. In response to Roth, this is 35 tweets. I can't believe we're 35 tweets into this story. Oh my god. And it's like part 8. Come on, guys, get to the scoop. In response to Roth, Baker repeatedly insists that the Hunter Biden materials were either faked, hacked, or both, and a violation of Twitter policy. Baker does so over email and in a Google Doc on October 14th and 15th. Okay. And yet, it's inconceivable. Again, argument from incredulity. Really got to watch out for that stuff. Nothing too crazy then, okay? I was always reading stuff, so it didn't have anything open in the background. What are you reading? It's inconceivable, Baker believed, that Hunter Biden emails were either faked or hacked. The New York Post had included a picture of the receipt signed by Hunter Biden, and an FBI subpoena showed that the agency had taken possession of the laptop in December 2019. As for the FBI, it likely would have taken a few hours for it to confirm that the laptop had belonged to Hunter Biden. Indeed, it only took a few days for journalist Peter Schweitzer to prove it. So let's listen to this guy who is totally...
When the laptop dropped in 2020, I had no idea where it came from. I didn't know if it was real. But what I did was I took the files on the Hunter Biden laptop and I compared it to bodies of information that we knew were absolutely true. So, for example, the Secret Service, again at the request of the U.S. Senate Committee, had released Hunter Biden's travel records. So we were able to take the laptop and say, when he says he's in Dubai, does that correspond with the Secret Service travel records? If he's emailing somebody and saying, I'm in Hong Kong, does that line up? In each and every case, it lined up.
So
then we compared the laptop to the suspicious activity reports, the SARS reports. When the emails referenced $5 million being wired to Hunter Biden's business, does that correspond with the SARS? And again, it lined up completely. And
but SARs are automated, and it doesn't necessarily mean that suspicious activity did happen. It's an automated report saying, please look into this. It's a yellow flag, not a red one.
And the laptop really came out at about the same time as the Secret Service travel logs and the wire
keeping updated on the Ukrainian war's impact on Europe's economy. I'm working on a video about it against support of Ukraine, but I want to make sure the data is 100% correct and current before publishing because I don't want to post anything anti-Ukraine unless it is 100% valid. Not trying to be a Russia apologist, already not supposed. Yeah, Canada just sent out over a bunch of money to. The argument you're gonna probably run up against is that like, oh God, what was it? I think it just had to do with like the moral positioning is that like Ukraine has managed to maintain its credibility in the world, hasn't really like done too much that's crazy and ridiculous, and so NATO is very much seeing this as an opportunity to have one of the greatest threats to the entire reason NATO exists, and they're seeing their enemy basically mess up. So every dollar they spend on it is like, they knew this conflict was going to happen. Ukrainian generals knew this conflict was going to happen. They've been preparing for war since the Euromaidan. But like the argument goes, like everyone was afraid of the bear. The bear made a mistake. You know, don't let a good opportunity go to waste. Ukraine has turned into a war country, which is great because that solidified them as like creates national identity and unity and like a war effort. And so now's the time, now's the chance, now's the opportunity. Ukraine never would have been able to make it into NATO anyways. If they had gotten into NATO, Russia would have attacked. Like there's really no way to like spin this. So like you can say our economies are doing trash, but it's true at the local level and like not true at the international world order level. And I think that's like increasingly a conflict. There's decisions being made that are good for the world order, for the world, but that are bad for the common man, and like people are losing trust of their governments like making these decisions.
Transfers. So it really would not have been possible for somebody to create thousands of emails simultaneously to demonstrate it. Then the final thing we did, Michael, is we looked at Hunter Biden's laptop emails and we compared them with a collection that we had received from Hunter Biden's business partners, a guy named Bevan Cooney, who's in jail. He shared his Gmail account with us, and we looked at it. The Hunter Biden laptops that have Bevan Cooney correspondence on them, do they actually line up with Bevan Cooney's Gmail account? And again, they did 100%. Now, I was able to do this in Florida with my researchers. The New York Times, the Washington Post, CBS News, ABC News could have done the same thing, but they were not interested in this story. They did not pursue this story. If you had told me that information would come forward that Jimmy Carter's family or Ronald Reagan's family was receiving tens of millions of dollars from Russian businesses that were linked to the KGB, it would have set off alarm bells, rightfully so, to all kinds of.
I like how he hasn't made that part clear, the whole link to the KGB. They just added that piece in there. I'm sorry, how did you know that part was true? Did you just make that part up? The unsynced microphones and cameras. Is this unsynced? Oh, geez. I didn't even notice. Yeah, I think the problem you have is that you can't escape geopolitics anymore. You can't, like, write a video essay about national economics as, like, a bubble because you run in, yeah. And it might be my side. Yeah, I'm running on a Mac. This thing is like weak AF. But I just don't think Macs are built for this kind of stuff. Anyways, 38 by 10 a.m. Twitter execs had bought into a wild hack and dump story. Quote, The suggestion from experts, which rings true, is there was a hack that happened separately, and they loaded the hacked materials on the laptop that magically appeared at a repair shop in Delaware. That's interesting. What? From Yule, quote, the key factor informing our approach is a consensus from experts monitoring election security and disinformation that this looks like a lot like a hack and leak that learned from the 2016 WikiLeaks approach and our policy changes. The suggestion from experts, which rings true, is there was a hack that happened separately, and they loaded the hacked materials onto the laptop that magically appeared at a repair shop in Delaware and was coincidentally reviewed in a very invasive way by someone who coincidentally, oh my god, this is actually a really funny email, who coincidentally then handed the materials to Rudy Giuliani. Given the severe risks we saw in this space in 2016, we're recommending a warning plus the amplification pending further information. If additional info emerges that establishes the origins of the materials more conclusively, we could either reverse this action and remove the warning or escalate our enforcement. Yada, 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 yada. So, like, this sounds like someone being like an investigator being like, if there's more than one coincidence, like, I don't know, man. Schizo email, like, yeah, I know, it's like pretty outside. I don't believe it either, but certainly being skeptical of the whole, like, how did this email end up on the New York Post? Like, it's extremely strange. Although I'm pretty sure Hunter Biden is pretty corrupt or whatever. At 3:38 p.m. that same day, October 14th, Baker arranges a phone conversation with Matthew Perry in the office of the General Counsel of the FBI. Man, this is tweet 40. This is awful. 40. The influence operation persuaded Twitter execs that the Hunter Biden laptop did not come from a whistleblower. One linked to a Hill article based on a Washington Post article from October 15th, which falsely suggested that Giuliani's leak of the laptop had something to do with Russia. Sorry, what? The Washington Post headline is, White House was warned Giuliani was target of Russian intelligence operation to feed misinformation to Trump. 4 former officials familiar with the matter said that Giuliani was the target of an influence operation by Russian intelligence. You're saying that's false? What? Wait, I'm confused. Why did Michael Schellenberger say that's false? Falsely suggested that Giuliani's leak of the laptop had something to do with Russia. I mean, that's not what this says. That's not what this says at all. 41. There's evidence that FBI agents have warned elected officials of foreign influence with the primary goal of leaking the information to the news media. This is a political dirty trick used to create the perception of impropriety. In 2020, the FBI gave a briefing to Senator Grassley and Johnson claiming evidence of Russian interference into their investigation of Hunter Biden. The briefing angered the senators, who say it was done to discredit their investigation. The unnecessary FBI briefing provided the Democrats and liberal media the vehicle to spread their false narrative that our work advanced Russian disinformation. Oh yeah, Chuck Grassley. We're all gonna take him seriously. Man is older than the internet. I guess a lot of us are. 44. Notably, then FBI General Counsel Jim Baker was investigated twice in 2017 and 2019 for leaking information to the news media. Quote, you're saying he's under criminal investigation? That's why you're not letting him answer? Meadows asked. Yes. Okay, how did those investigations turn out? They totally forgot the innocent before guilty part. They're just like, oh man, pulling up this story from 2017, 2019. This Jim Baker guy can't be trusted. He once was investigated. How did it turn out? Yada, 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 yada. Yada, yada, yada. Yada, yada, yada. But the revelation's timing suggests that Republicans are seeking to undercut Baker's credibility following a bombshell report in the New York Times last weekend. Oh, really? It looks like they're trying to undermine Jim Baker's reputation? And look, he's doing it by citing an article from years ago where, you see how they like set it up? You know, you can like attack someone early and then refer back to your attacks as legitimate. Damn. Still can't get over that I'm over 30. Why? because I've nurtured and cultured my inner child. 45. In the end, the FBI's influence campaign aimed at executives at news media, Twitter, and other social media companies worked. They censored and discredited the Hunter Biden laptop story. By December 2020, Baker and his colleagues even sent a note of thanks to the FBI for its work. The FBI's influence campaign may have been helped by the fact that it was paying Twitter millions of dollars for its staff time. Okay, now we're just in conspiracy territory. Quote, I'm happy to report we have collected $3.4 million since October 2019, reports an associate of Jim Baker. Reports an associate of Jim, FYI, in 2019, Scale instituted a reimbursement program for a legal process response from the FBI. Prior to the start of the program, Twitter chose not to collect under this statutory right of reimbursement for the time spent processing requests from the FBI. So they didn't used to collect on this money, and now they do. Cool, good for you. You plugged a hole in the boat. Whoa, being old is cool. You get to understand understand what you like better. Trudy. Although time does speed up, which kind of sucks. 47, this is the longest Twitter leak. Oh my god, please wrap this story up. 47, the pressure from the FBI on social media platforms continues. In August 2022, Twitter execs prepared for a meeting with the FBI, whose goal was to, quote, convince us to produce on more FBI EDRs. EDRs are an emergency disclosure request, a warrantless search. In response to the FBI files revelation of high-level FBI agents at Twitter, Jim Jordan said, Jim Jordan, you're gonna cite Jim Jordan, my word. The dude who covered up all those sexual assault allegations at the high school, that guy? Who covered it up for years? I have concerns about whether the government was running a misinformation operation on we the people. This is insane. I cannot believe they cited Jim Jordan. That's wild. Anyone who reads the Twitter files, regardless of the political orientation, should share those concerns. We read one of the longest and most boring threads. This has been one of the worst ones, I think. By far. By far. I'm still not even sure what's it about. It's all like innuendo. Holy shit, this guy from the FBI made it here? Well, and other FBI agents got hired by Twitter and they knew each other from their old job? How is that possible? How is it possible that these FBI agents who left the FBI to go work somewhere else in the private market are now recognizing each other? Is that legal? Are FBI agents allowed to remember each other? Like I don't even know what what are you saying? What are you saying? There's a public... Yeah, the FBI is always like pushing to get more power. I don't know what the story is here. It's the FBI. Nobody likes them. Okay, that was Twitter Files Part 7. We might need a palate cleanser before jumping into Twitter Files Part 8. How Twitter quietly aided the Pentagon's covert online PSYOP campaign. Oh, Jesus Christ. Sheesh. So who's this Lee Fang guy? That's always a bit of fun. He's at The Intercept. That's impressive. Previously, he was a reporting fellow at the Nation Institute, contributing writer at the Nation, also very impressive. Fang was a writer at progressive outlet The Republic Report, began his career as an investigative blogger for Think Progress. Okay, that's whatever. In 2018, the Izzy Award of the Park Center for Independent Media was awarded to Fang and fellow Intercept reporter Sharon Lerner. Yada, yada, yada. Okay. He seems like young. He's 36. In 2011, Fang published several articles where he alleged that special interests manipulated the media reaction to the Occupy Wall Street protests. Okay. He reported on Koch Industries in April 2011. Started working at The Intercept in 2015. In June 2020, Fang was accused of racism by Akilah Lacey, a colleague at The Intercept. This occurred after Fang shared a Martin Luther King Jr. quote about remaining nonviolent and tweeted out an interview in which a black man at a George Floyd protest expressed concern about black-on-black crime. Oh no! Oh no! And of course, the New York Times calls him a liberal. What a bad take. Salon calls him liberal and progressive. Liberal commentator Jonathan Chait described Fang as left-wing and wrote, quote, like many Bernie Sanders supporters, Fang often lacerates mainstream liberals, both for insufficient populist zeal and on occasion for excessive focus on identity. I like hanging out with fully grassroots Tea Party activists because for the most part, whatever their motivations are, they're just upset about society and they want to do something about it, which at the core I respect, even though I pretty much disagree with their worldview. Okay, all right. Sorry the framing was bad on that, but I just want to do a quick review of who this guy was. So it seems like a young lefty has had some bad takes and got roasted over the open fire on Twitter. So let's see him do some journalism, baby. Despite promises to shut down covert state-run propaganda networks, Twitter docs show that the social media giant directly assisted the U.S. military's influence operations. 2. Twitter has claimed for years that they make concerted efforts to detect and thwart government-backed platform manipulation. Here is Twitter testifying to Congress about its pledge to rapidly identify and shut down all state-backed covert information operations and deceptive propaganda. I'm going to put on a bit of background music. But behind the scenes, Twitter gave approval and special protection to the U.S. military's online psychological influence ops. Despite knowledge that Pentagon propaganda accounts used covert identities, Twitter did not suspend many for around 2 years or more. Some remain active. In 2017, a U.S. Central Command CENTCOM official sent Twitter a list of 52 Arab language accounts, quote, we use to amplify certain messages. The official asked for priority service for 6 accounts, verification for 1, and whitelist abilities for the others. Sure is tough to do web ops when you can't tweet. The rest are accounts we use to amplify certain messages. Ideally, they could be whitelisted as well. Again, if it's too big an ask, the first 6 are their priority. 5. The same day CENTCOM sent the list, Twitter officials used a tool to grant a special whitelist tag that essentially provides verification status to the accounts without the blue check, meaning they're exempt from spam abuse flags, more visible and likely to trend on hashtags. Okay. The CENTCOM accounts on the list tweeted frequently about U.S. military priorities in the Middle East, including promoting anti-Iran messages, promotion of the Saudi Arabia-U.S.-backed war in Yemen, and accurate U.S. drone strikes that claim to only hit terrorists. Okay, now you got my attention. CENTCOM then shifted strategies and deleted disclosures of ties to the Twitter accounts. The bios of the accounts changed to seemingly organic profiles. One bio read, quote, Euphrates Pulse. Another used an apparent deep fake profile and claimed to be a source of Iraqi opinion. This is from 2015, or joined 2015, holy cow. 8. One Twitter official who spoke to me said he feels deceived by the covert shift. Still, many emails from throughout 2020 show that high-level Twitter executives were well aware of DoD's vast network of fake accounts and covert propaganda and did not suspend the accounts. Interesting. For example, Twitter lawyer Jim Baker, don't you mean the ex-FBI agent? Mused in a July 2020 email about an upcoming DoD meeting that the Pentagon used poor tradecraft in setting up its network and were seeking strategies for not exposing the accounts that are linked to each other or to DoD or the USG. 10. Stacia Cardi, another Twitter attorney, replied that the Pentagon wanted a SCIF, a secure communication facility. It's like how so that like other people can't track your shit. They may want to retroactively classify its social media activities to obfuscate this their activity in the space, and that this may represent an overclassification to avoid embarrassment. Okay. All right. This is starting to sound like a story. In several other 2020 emails, high-level Twitter executives and lawyers discussed the covert network and even recirculated the 2017 list from CENTCOM and shared another list of 157 undisclosed Pentagon accounts, again, mostly focused on the Middle East military issues. Okay. What are your thoughts? Is it okay for the FBI to use Twitter to run PSYOP campaigns in foreign countries? That's a tough question, actually. I don't know how comfortable I am with that. That's a tough one. In a May 2020 email, Twitter's Lisa Roman emailed the DoD with 2 lists. One list was accounts previously provided to us, end quote, and another list Twitter detected. The accounts tweeted in Russian and Arabic on U.S. military issues in Syria and /ISIS, and many also did not disclose Pentagon ties. You'd probably be fine with it, barely political. Protection of the state matters. Got a medal in those Middle East countries. 13. I mean, if the world has basically not held George Bush and Tony Blair accountable for their illegal war in Iraq, I'm pretty sure this is small fries. Pretty sure this is small fries. Oh yeah? How about the drone war in Yemen, which Biden has largely scaled down? Surprise, surprise. Actually, surprise. 13. Many of these secretive U.S. military propaganda accounts, despite detection by Twitter as late as 2020, but potentially earlier, continued tweeting through this year. Some not suspended until May 2022 or later, according to records I reviewed. It's not great, but realistically, other countries would do it. Yeah, it's one of those real politic things, right? Be at a disadvantage if you're not. Yeah, absolutely. Probably benefit from being psyops, which affect U.S. citizens, though. The loop to get around that is the Five Eyes network that Canada, Britain, Australia, New Zealand, and America are part of. In order so that Canada doesn't spy on its own domestic citizens, we just give our information to Britain and then ask Britain for it back. And then that's somehow legal and okay and totally cool and fine. Don't Google the Five Eyes network. If you really want to talk about conspiracy theories, this has been around for like a decade now. 14. In August 2022, a Stanford Internet Observatory report exposed a U.S. military covert propaganda network on Facebook, Telegram, Twitter, and other apps using fake news portals and deep fake images and memes against U.S. foreign adversaries. The U.S. propaganda network relentlessly pushed narratives against Russia, China, and other foreign countries. They accused Iran of, quote, threatening Iraq's water security and flooding the country with crystal meth, and of harvesting the organs of Afghan refugees. Wow, that's dark. That's messed up. I know that at a certain point, like in Iran, a lot of people were selling their kidneys because I think that's like, okay, there's an organ market. The Stanford report did not identify all of the accounts in the network, but one they did name was the exact same Twitter account CENTCOM asked for whitelist privileges in its 2017 email. I verified via Twitter's internal tools. The account used an AI-created deepfake image. In subsequent reporting, Twitter was cast as an unbiased hero for removing, quote, a network of fake user accounts promoting pro-Western policy positions. Media covering the story described Twitter as evenly applying its policies and proactive in suspending the DoD network. The reality is much more murky. Twitter actively assisted CENTCOM's network going back to 2017, and as late as 2020 knew these accounts were covert, designed to deceive, to manipulate the discourse, a violation of Twitter's policies and promises they waited years to suspend. Hey, we got to a scoop. We got there, everybody. A scoop. Finally. Holy cow. It only took a couple weeks. Or in Twitter thread number 9, but this is a scoop. This sounds like news. 19. Twitter's comms team was closely in touch with reporters working to minimize Twitter's role. When the WAPO report on the scandal, Twitter officials congratulated each other because the story didn't mention any Twitter employees and focused largely on the Pentagon. Okay. The conduct with the U.S. military's covert network stands in stark contrast with how Twitter has boasted about rapidly identifying and taking down covert accounts tied to state-backed influence operations, including Thailand, Russia, Venezuela, and others since 2016. Here's my reported piece with more detail. Good job, he actually put out a real piece. I was given access to Twitter for a few days. I signed, agreed to nothing. Twitter had no input into anything I did or wrote. The searches were carried out by a Twitter attorney, so what I saw could be limited. Good job. This sounds like reporting. He told us how he got the sources and what were the limitations on that sourcing and yada yada yada. Holy cow. This is actually something I can actually sink my teeth into. Holy shit. It's funny though that he's the one leftist we've seen and his reporting is actually like there's nothing too insane I could find about him about his past career, and the substance of the journalism is good. Like, it actually sounds like there's a story here. So there it is. If you want to check it out yourself, here's the piece. So yeah, interesting. Actually, it's not like an explosive or anything. It's not like the biggest deal in the world. But it is new. It is new information. It does sound like the Pentagon's flying a spaceship. That's what this looks like. Okay, all right. Oh my God, look at all this stuff that Trump's Pentagon was doing. Yeah, what was the years on this? What were the years on this again? Okay, let's move on. I think the funny part is that Elon Musk is like pissing off the very people he's trying to work with. Oh God, oh jeez, oh no, oh no, oh no. Yeah, we believe in transparency here at the B-Word broadcast. Elon is doing some goofy stuff. This is dangerous. I think Wired had a piece out that was like, billionaires are a national security problem, and I strongly agree at this point. Like, this is dangerous. Dangerous for democracy. I don't know. It's hard to look at this favorably. He was your idol growing up. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a period in the early days when it's like, whoa, electric cars, visionary, maybe he does something cool. And then like just so much critical opinion has come out about all of his projects, all of his history. It's really hard to take him seriously. And even if you didn't know anything about that, just watching him behave on Twitter is like very embarrassing, very silly. What Elon Musk wants from his hand-picked journalists and what the Twitter files actually reveal, by Justin Peters. All right, let's get into it. Let me just check the framing on this. Get that nice and big for y'all. Here we go. Yeah, baby. Okay. On Thursday night, the journalist Barry Weiss posted an article on the online magazine she edits, The Free Press, that purported to tell the story behind the Twitter files, the investigatory series based on a strategic leak that Weiss has helped to author. Quote, at dinner time on December 2nd, I received a text from Elon Musk, CEO of Tesla, founder of SpaceX, founder of the Boring Company, founder of Neuralink, on most days the richest man in the world, possibly history, and as of October, the owner of Twitter, Weiss wrote. Was I interested in looking at Twitter's archives, he asked, and how soon could I get to Twitter HQ? You know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of Game of Thrones, like, all hail Daenerys, you know, Queen of the Andals, breaker of chains, largest, you know, like the long honorifics. Hey, Saren, how you doing? How you doing this morning? We're doing Twitter files, because it's silly. It's very silly. We've come across one good piece of journalism so far, thankfully. And it was on The Intercept, so, you know, no big surprise there. These archives were a trove of internal company documents left behind from the previous corporate administration. They purported to show that before... oops, let me make a little mistake there. They purported to show that before Musk bought the company for $44 billion this fall, Twitter had engaged in surreptitious strategies of content moderation that suppressed certain right-leaning statements, opinions, stories, and individuals on its platform. You got an email back yesterday, like, for a job? You got an interview? I hope so. Yeah, let's go! Don't be satisfied. It's always good to get a second interview so that you can say to them, hey, yeah, I would love to sign up, but I got another interview later, and they're offering me a pretty good deal. Doesn't matter if it exists or not, but like create that tension so that you can boost your pay. Yeah, I'd really sign, but the other guys are offering me 25. You know, is there anything you can do to make me whole? Always ask that. Throughout the month of December, Weiss and a few other journalists, including former Rolling Stone writer Matt Taibbi and Michael Schellenberger, the author of 2021's San Francisco, I can't even say it seriously, San Francisco, Why Progressives Ruin Cities, have been surfacing and interpreting these files in a sequence of Twitter threads that happen to confirm many conservatives' prior assumptions. And that's the part that I've noticed. It's like confirmation bias, withdraws deal. Yeah. Let me offer you a trade offer. You give me money, I give you labor. So far, there have been 6 installments pertaining to Twitter's alleged practice of shadow banning certain right-oriented accounts, its working relationship with various U.S. government departments, its moderation strategies in response to the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol, and its decision to boot then-President Donald Trump from the platform. They have inspired headlines on Fox News and cries of, "I knew it!" from the kind of Twitter personalities who say things like woke mind virus without a hint of irony. And in fact, one of my experiences with just like ugly racism, it was another guy who's like all into the woke mind virus like narrative. Just like, dude, I cannot take you seriously at all. Like, shut the fuck up. Shut up. In other words, the Twitter files, authors, and their ideological counterparts have framed this material as evidence that Twitter, in thrall to its woke workforce and progressive politics more generally, had become an anti-democratic tool that extended the privilege of free speech only to those who held the proper political opinions. The mind virus. It done got me in the minds. The brainworms. Twitter's former leadership curtailed public debate, drew arbitrary lines about what's fake and what's real, and gaslit ordinary Americans, Weiss wrote in her Thursday night article. Musk says he won't do that. And then later was like, do you still like me? Right around the same time that Weiss's piece went up, there's like way too many S's going on there, several mainstream journalists learned that their Twitter accounts had been suspended. Ostensibly, this was done in response to the journalist linking or referring to the Mastodon page for an account called @ElonJet, which posts publicly available flight data about Musk's private plane. And I want to make you aware that there is now a subreddit. Is it ElonJet? Fastest growing. Oh no, I got it wrong. Is this it? Bruh, what's going on? There should be one that's got like millions and millions and millions. It's got like really big, really fast. But apparently I can't find it on the fly. You'll have to look for it, sorry. If you care. We were over here. Moving on. Elon Jet Tracker, thank you. May have been removed. All the mods got banned? Wait, what? Wait, what? So it's popping off. Here it is. It's good. It's still up. You can go there now. There's a big purge. You saw a thread complaining? You too can add to the numbers. Information desires to be free. Okay, moving on. We're done with that story. We're done with Li Fang. Musk suspended @ElonJet from Twitter earlier this week, reversing an earlier promise. And on Thursday night, he justified all these media suspensions by claiming that @ElonJust's posts were the equivalent of assassination coordinates, ? It just so happened that all of these journalists had reported or commented critically on Musk's tenure as Twitter's boss. It also turned out that the story Musk had shared to justify the ban, involving a supposed threat to his son, had some glaring holes too, including, like, not having a police report. Interesting. By Saturday, after polling his Twitter followers about how long the ban should last, Musk had reinstated many of the suspended accounts. Later that day, Twitter suspended Washington Post journalist Taylor Lorenz after she asked Musk on Twitter to comment on a story she was working on regarding the original suspensions. She's since been reinstated. He's got no spine. Elon Jet Tracker is petty, though, to be fair. Doesn't do much. It's just memes. Yeah, of course. But even more petty, trying to stop that kind of stuff. It's like, it's not going to work. You're not going to out-petty the internet. Are you insane? Are you insane? It's the internet. It's filled with trolls and petty folk. It is not surprising to watch Musk preen about exposing his predecessor's alleged abuses of power while simultaneously engaging in the exact same behaviors. Yeah, this article really goes in hard. Musk has always been too rich and too grandiose to care about following through on his promises. To hear Weiss tell it, Musk pitched her on his recent takeover of Twitter as his attempt to secure the future of civilization. Oh, he's so full of himself. While it's easy to believe that Musk thinks of himself in messianic terms, there's no reason why the rest of us should rush to join his apostolate. There's a good $5 word that it, is built up to. I can understand being worried that hundreds of thousands of people are actively tracking your location, though. Must get some pretty paranoid thoughts. Yeah, absolutely, barely. It's kind of the what's it called? Like the fishbowl effect. The Beatles went through it. You hit a certain level of fame, and then all of a sudden you're like in the fishbowl. Everybody can see you. But I think the information was just like the actual jet itself, not necessarily himself. Even so, I'm reluctant to dismiss the Twitter files out of hand. Same. There's actually, at least from my count, one story out of all of the hullabaloo. The Twitter files are inherently interesting, if only because they help to illuminate the inner workings of one of the world's most prominent tech companies during several pressure cooker episodes. You don't have to like Weiss, Taibbi, Musk, or the term San Francisco to acknowledge that the documents do seem to illustrate certain contradictions between what Twitter professed in public and how some of its employees acted in private. Sure. How did Twitter make the call to ban Donald Trump? Why did it decide to block the Hunter Biden laptop story? And if it did act inappropriately during these episodes, is it fair to extrapolate malice, institutional cowardice, and systemic partisan bias from this data? That's usually where I fall off. It's like the Twitter files have some kind of shocking revelations, but like y'all are really going far on it. Like you're taking it way outside of what the evidence says. But also, why did Musk choose these particular journalists to receive and report on the files? That's what I've been wondering. Taibbi, Weiss, and Musk. I'm not as familiar with Schellenberger's work. I don't know how you could be, considering it's like only for climate denialers who believe that climate science is a thing. He's got a weird niche. Taibbi, Weiss, and Musk make a real era-appropriate team, insofar as each has become very prominent online by deliberately missing the forest for the trees. All three are notable critics of what they deem left-wing groupthink, and all three seem to take pleasure in surfacing and or pandering to strains of cultural and political thought that fall outside the sphere of current liberal consensus. It's kind of ironic too, because tech companies and the government have so much information on us, they can track anything we do. Now billionaires complain about everyone watching them. That's actually a really funny point, Saren, because so much of the hyperventilating is like, holy cow, look at the government and all its influence it has on our social media platforms. And then like in the very same hyperventilating breath, it's like, oh, the people are watching Elon Musk, the second most rich man who's having a huge influence on our public square. Why are the normies talking? Like, why are the poors gathering in the town square? What's going on? There's no hanging today. Sorry. Okay. He's second richest now? Yeah, he fell off. No, it's some other guy I've never heard of. And he's like, the richest man in the world only rents private jets so that he can't get tracked. There's a smarter billionaire out of there that you don't know about because he's smarter than you. That's what's scary. You think we're getting one over on Elon here? Like there's even deeper, darker monsters in the ocean. All right. So Taibbi, Weiss, and Musk do this from the standpoint of insiders who have chosen to portray themselves as outsiders. Where have we heard that one before? Musk is the richest man in the world and yet comforts himself online like a postulous incel on a Mountain Dew bender. Wow. Great sentence. It's awesome. What the hell is postulous? Apparently it's a musical artist. Resembling or covered with pustules. So like I guess like you got acne. Though Taibbi and Weiss were each once ensconced at the absolute top of the American mainstream media, Weiss at the opinion section of the New York Times, Taibbi is a star writer for Rolling Stone, both have since migrated to Substack, where they each run popular and lucrative newsletters that exist to bite the hands that once fed them. Man, this person's writing so good. Holy shit. 5 head take, yeah. Sounds like a medical term insult? It is. No, it's not. What, you don't make fun of people who don't care of their hygiene and are covered in like pimples and stuff? Come on, incels are pretty easy to make fun of. They have no social skills. They can't fight back. Their shared thesis, to oversimplify, is that the mainstream media, big tech, and other important cultural institutions now follow a shared set of ultra-liberal speech codes that have been imposed from within by woke young employees. And you saw that in the Taby Russell Brand interview, where Taby's like, it's interesting how these people who all think we're full of shit are using the same words. Kind of curious, don't you think? Just like, there's so many like fallacies wrapped up into that. It's just painful. It's just like so painful. The copium, just like raw copium. Cowed by their strident staffers, executives at these institutions have allegedly abdicated their leadership responsibilities and have, so to speak, allowed the inmates to run the asylum. Dare to express opinions that transgress these implicit speech codes? Dare to say anything that might offend even a single social justice warrior within these spheres? And you'll quickly find yourself excommunicated. Because it's a religion. It's basically a cult at this time. The woke cult virus, mine. The broader implications of this alleged ideological uniformity, Taby and Weiss argue, are devastating for speech and democracy. And actually, fair enough. There's ample historical precedent for leftist political movements using speech codes as tools to empower repressive regimes. We need to cut, or I don't know if that was a left-wing movement, but yeah, there's definitely true. Just as there are countless moments in history when right-wing dipshits have stoked moral panics rooted in cultural revanchism and risible claims of conspiracy in order to consolidate power and influence for their own curdled ends. Does the word groomer come to mind? Also, this sentence, cultural revanchism? Sheesh. I haven't seen that word in forever. Epic self-own if a Republican compares a religion to a cult? Wait, are you saying Christianity's a cult? I hear evangelical Christians got it right. The challenge and obligation of citizenship in a democracy involves, in part, remaining alert to the various strains of demagoguery that are circulating at any given period of time, accurately assessing the relative threats that they pose to democratic principles, and taking notice when prominent voices seem intent on deflecting your attention from mountains while warning endlessly about molehills. Man, this is a good article. Holy cow. What about our emails? You're pro-religion? There's just some real weird shit going on. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I got mixed feelings about religion, but like, I'm not too hard on it anymore. Yeah, there's definitely some weird shit going on. You spelled weird wrong again. All right, let's finish this. American democracy has indeed taken a bit of a beating over the past few years, but the most violent blows have been landed by the Trumpist right and its opportunistic enablers. While neither Taby nor Weiss is blind to the threats that Trumpism has posed to democracy, the recent output sure does make it seem as if the predominant crisis facing America today is one of creeping illiberalism and ideological uniformity in tech, media, and the Democratic Party. Absolutely crushing it. Thank you, CERN. Though Taby and Weiss do not self-classify as conservatives, the drum that they've been banging for a few years is functionally indistinguishable from the one that the American right wing has been banging for as long as I've been alive, a concordance that matters intensely when attempting to parse the import of the Twitter files. Like, that's what I'm reading. Every time I'm reading one of these threads, I'm like, is this Tucker Carlson? Like, are we watching Sean Hannity right now? Come on. Like, I know this meme. For decades now, American right-wing discourse has been rooted in two bedrock principles. The first is that the American right is under attack constantly from all leftward angles. It's true. Look what they did to Liz Truss, everybody. That's better, barely political. I almost timed you out. The second principle is that there is a lot of money to be made in convincing low information value voters that they are under attack, and that Hollywood, government, the academy, big business, and the media are now and always have been conspiring against them. And the part I find most pernicious about this is, like, you ever get into conversations about big pharma, and like, as a leftist, it's really difficult because big pharma is behind like GMO in South American countries, absolutely roasting like the average farmer there, but is also the source of like vaccines during the COVID crisis. So like it's really hard to navigate that with someone who's super skeptical of big pharma without it devolving into like anti-vaccinator bullshit, you know? The premise that the entire world is aligned against the right in an ongoing effort to demote their values, their freedoms, and their right to use ethnic slurs in public is a tribal identifier for contemporary conservatives, and surfacing evidence of these conspiracies is right-wing media's most important work. Banger after banger. This is crazy good article. This endless fanfare of grievance, innuendo, and motivated misprioritization colors most of the content you'll find on the most popular conservative news and opinion outlets. Vast edifices of bullshit constructed atop small kernels of verifiable information. Let's go. We're gonna watch some Ben Shabibo later and we'll just really grok on this article. But this ongoing victim narrative is undermined by the plain fact that, far from being marginalized and undervalued by most available metrics, right-wing news and opinion is very popular and profitable. But don't let facts affect your feelings, everybody. Fox News consistently tops the cable news ratings. Conservative radio shows and podcasts top the leaderboards in their respective disciplines. Joe Rogan is still like the most successful talking head on the planet. Right-wing Facebook pages are consistently among the most popular issues-based Facebook pages. Substacks dedicated to the proposition that divergent political opinion has no home in the American media earn their proprietors better livings than they ever would have made at the publications they once called home. We are literally living in the golden age of getting rich and wielding influence by pretending that your voice has been silenced, which brings us back to the Twitter files and the people to whom they were handed by the wealthiest man in the world. I think we can find, if possible, what was that, Kyle Rittenhouse? Claims his voice is being censored while speaking into a microphone. I love this every time. I love seeing this. It's like I'm being silenced, and it's like a million people are watching. It's like, y'all have never. Oh, they removed it. This is censorship, brother. This is censorship. Oh, there it is. There it is. On TV with a mic in his hand, Kyle Rittenhouse claims censorship. Whew. I love writing like this really well written article and then being able to immediately find an example of what that person's talking about.
Anything they can to come after us, and I'm talking about conservatives right now.
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at the censorship with Elon Musk, what he's exposing, Charlie Kirk was blacklisted, a bunch of other conservatives were blacklisted on Twitter. They're preventing our voices from being heard, and soon they're going to take away our rights and they're going to persecute us, and it's going to come. People are going to try to like throw trials on us, and they're going to try to silence us, and they're going to try to take over the United States of America.
Wow. They're going to try to take over the United States of America. Incredible. What a take. What a take. Absolutely wild. Oh my god. Yeah, it's pretty... It's gonna come. I'm gonna come. Over the course of 6 long Twitter threads thus far, Schellenberger, Taby, and Weiss have used selections from archives of internal company communications, augmented by interviews with unnamed current and former Twitter staffers, to spotlight instances in which conservative-aligned stories, users, posts, and point of views were silenced on the platform. In the first of these threads, Taby delved into Twitter's decision to initially suppress circulation of an October 2020 New York Post story about emails found on Hunter Biden's laptop, and to even go so far as to mark the story unsafe. They just freelanced it. Hacking was the excuse, but within a few hours, pretty much everyone realized that wasn't going to hold, but no one had the guts to reverse it. I remember covering that. Also, if you're enjoying yourself and the stream and all the lovely entertaining I do, give a follow. Tell someone about the thing. Subscribe, or don't. It's okay. Y'all are sweet and based. And add over. I'm not gonna run ads. I'm not gonna run ads until I'm like actually have people like, I don't know. I feel like there's a limit. If you're a small community of like under 20 chatters or something, I feel weird running ads. It feels like a bit of a, like, I don't know. It seems a little silly. So you're free now. You're free now. But soon, one day when I'm rich and famous, when I buy Twitter. In the second thread, Weiss implied that the files show that Twitter discriminated against prominent right-wing pundits such as Dan Bongino, Charlie Kirk, and Chaya, libs of TikTok, Raychick, even as company executives claimed that they, quote, certainly don't shadow ban based on political viewpoints or ideology. We covered that. Twitter set the account of conservative activist Charlie Kirk to do not amplify. In the third thread, Taby suggested that before and after the 2020 presidential election, Twitter executives may have manipulated their own rules in order to create pretexts for constraining the visibility of certain accounts while enjoying intensified relationships with federal agencies, that they may have exerted influence on Twitter's moderation policies. And this is senior executives increasingly struggled with rules and began to speak of violations as pretext to do what they would have done anyways. And then we went through that on this channel. Running ads on a 7-view stream will do more damage. Yeah, exactly. A few people would drop off. Setting Republicans to do not amplify is kind of weird, to be honest. Well, it wasn't Republicans. It was this singular individual, right? Like, that's, I mean, it seems okay, right? It's just like, it's just that person. Do not amplify. Remember we were talking about, like, the thing that Twitter sells is moderation? Well, that's what's going on there. They're like, yeah, this guy's kind of caustic. We don't need to platform anymore. Let's drop that account a bit. In thread 4, Schellenberger dove into the discussion surrounding the removal of Donald Trump from Twitter soon after the January 6 riots and focused on the role played by ex-Twitter executive Yoel Roth in that decision. Create justifications to ban Trump, seek a change of policy for Trump alone, distinct from other political leaders, express no concern for the free speech or democracy implications of a ban. In 2017, Roth tweeted that there were, quote, actual Nazis in the White House. A true thing. Actually true. Stephen Miller is an actual Nazi. I'm sorry. Only top streamers need to hit a requirement, but that's because they normally have a personalized deal. Ah, okay, I see. Yeah, it's one of those things, Saren, where it's like, eventually I will have to, because if you ever listen to Hassan, it is a good pitch. Watch the ad, pay me money, or I hit you with ads. It's one of those, like, you're gonna not enjoy this experience, and I know you want to enjoy it. I make such good content, isn't it worth paying for? And like, I just feel like you run into the problem where you just scare away your audience, where they're like, oh man, a 3-minute ad, I'm not gonna wait for this, I'll just go to someone else. And at this level, like, every user, like, kind of matters or whatever, so you're just like, yeah, all right. Yeah, no, capitalism, yeah, exactly. It's all like a mugs game, all like risk reward. Eventually, when there's like 20 people or whatever, there's enough people who have subscribed so that even when you run ads and you lose some of those people, there's still conversation happening. Yeah, it's true. I don't know why I never really leaned into Patreon. Yeah, I don't know why I've never leaned into that. It is a smart choice. Yeah, always a good idea. I think, yeah. I think I always get worried about, like, producing or, like, what I'm going to produce. Like, I'll write a poem for you once a month. Who wants free poetry? Okay, moving on. In the 5th thread, Weiss played an old tune and suggested that Twitter's woke employees pressured the company to ban Trump from the platform, even though he may not have strictly violated any of the company's rules. Yeah, I remember reading this and being like, this ain't what you think it is. People who pay $50 a month get a personalized poem for them. Yeah, but then I have to write that poem. Poems are tough. Poems are tough. There's a gig I being offered by a corporate exec to it was like a beginning of year employee like celebration day or whatever, and they wanted to bring me in to like write a poem on new beginnings, but also like incorporate what employees were feeding me. And I had like an hour or two, and I'm like, I'll do that for $250. Like, don't waste my time with this. This is an annoying job. It's not going to work out the way you think it is. Everyone's going to be disappointed, so you better pay me a lot of money, or else I'm not wasting my time. And they never got back to me, and I'm like, thank God. I did not want that stupid job. It sounded ridiculous. New beginnings. I would have got ChatGPT to write it. Just, like, literally, let's see, ChatGPT. Write a poem Am I logged in still? I am. I'm not logged. Yeah, no, here, am I logged? It's at capacity right now. Oh, man. Oh, man, ChatGPT is so much fun. Okay, let's move on. For 50 bucks a month, I do a ton, not gonna lie. That'd go far in today's economy. Yeah, yeah, all right. Sounds like you're ready to start a Patreon, baby. Although it's the $5 tiers that are harder. You had ChatGPT reformulate your cover letters? Smart, based, very based. We have to do the right thing and ban this account, said one staffer. It's pretty obvious he's going to try to thread the needle of incitement without violating the rules, said another. Whoa, adults realize that people try to skirt the rules in order to get what they want? No. Finally, in the most recent thread, Taby dug into Twitter's constant and pervasive contacts with the FBI, and we kind of covered quite a bit of that. I actually might have missed that one. It's possible. ChatGPT help me with code? Oh, God. You can shove it in and it'll tell you what's redundant? Oh, no. Stop. It's terrifying. What language? I'm curious. I tried to get it to write poems, and the poems are really weak. They're all, like, rhyming. It was like getting, like, a white... this is going to be some Caucasian stuff, but, like, getting, like, some white lady to write a poem for you, and like, oh, God, kill me. It's awesome and scary at the same time. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's definitely like a new thing. Not even a super well-known prologue? What the hell is that? The corpus for ChatGPT is 1.5 billion words, and that is a 10 times reduction from the previous corpus, which is crazy. Used it to code in the language it's coded in. Oh, okay, all right, meta. If you count yourself a conservative, you may well see what Weiss, Taby, and the rest see in the revelations of the Twitter files. For the past several years, concomitant with the rising furor surrounding so-called cancel culture, many right-leaning pundits have alleged that they have been discriminated against by various social media platforms because of their political orientation. This reminds me of like Diamond and Silk or whatever. Diamond and Silk were funny. They have charged that big tech has worked to suppress their voices and constrain their influence, either surreptitiously by processes such as shadow banning, or directly by preventing them, temporarily or permanently, from using platforms such as Twitter and Facebook. To these pundits and their enablers, big tech's alleged anti-woke bias has been a major story, and the Twitter files have now brought the boogeyman out into the light. Oh, this is so good, man. Cutting through the cheese. It draws from the internet, and I feel like 70% of code on the internet is people asking for help on broken code. Yeah, basically. I would never use code made from AI, only use it to improve it. I'm pretty sure, Barely Political, that software that can write software has already been produced. Like, we've already tipped over that line, which, yeah, is intense. There's not really all that much to see. This is sort of where I am. I'm like, what's the scoop here? There's a lot of words I had to read through to be like, so what? Take the Hunter Biden laptop story, for instance. While the New York Post article in question probably shouldn't have been suppressed in the first place, Twitter's decision to do so touched off a storm of internal and external debate, leading to the Post stories being restored to circulation the next day, and Twitter's hacked materials policy, which the Post piece had purportedly violated, evolving as a result of the uproar. This sequence of events doesn't reveal some huge partisan conspiracy so much as a group of people apparently struggling in real time to make good decisions while being responsive enough to reverse course when they got those decisions wrong. And that's almost exactly where I landed. I was just like, yeah, it sounds like people are trying to match policy to tough new situations. You can do small scripts, but good luck trying to create a whole system. Yeah, I noticed that too. Like, the longer the story, the harder it has of just not, like, regurgitating the details in, like, a very specific format. So there's not a lot of, like, nuance or depth, but I'm sure, like, it's just going to take humans some time to figure out how to extract that type of deep knowledge. Okay, moving on. The 6 threads we've seen thus far show that Twitter had a clear, albeit evolving, system for content moderation, and that it took that system seriously, unlike now. The system seems to have existed to ensure that content moderation decisions were not made arbitrarily, and it also seems that only in chaotic or extraordinary circumstances was the system superseded by other considerations. Take, for example, the Libs of TikTok account, run by Rychik, which gets a lot of attention in Weiss's first Twitter Files thread. As my Slate colleague Evan Urquhart wrote earlier this month, quote, Libs of TikTok has repeatedly highlighted specific individuals, events, and institutions with inflammatory language, often falsely suggesting that they are guilty of heinous acts against young children. The account's spotlight has repeatedly resulted in harassment and violent threats toward the individuals involved in a process typically referred to as stochastic terrorism. And like, you notice that Barry Weiss didn't bring up any of that. Barry Weiss did not bring any of that. Totally didn't mention that. Not even a big thing. And right now, the big push is on the right wing is to try to make stochastic terrorism like not a thing. The more details in the prompts you give it, the better responses you get, at least in my experience with it. I've sometimes copied and pasted whole web pages of information and will use that in the directions. Yeah, Saren, the way that, like the novelty that this system has developed when I went deep into the mechanics is like, there's already kind of like a feedback loop between the corpus of data that the AI is trained on. But the thing that they added that was new and different was that now it's able to incorporate human responses into the system. So like you have your AI that's doing all its natural language processing and grammar and syntax and all that stuff based off of a massive corpus. And then the innovation is now when you're talking to it, it's not just accessing that data and giving answers, it's doing that and also taking into account what you're saying. And that's why, like, as you use it more and more in a particular thread, it will start to like repeat things from above in the thread or use that to create like a small context, which is what we do in language, right? Like when we have a conversation with one person, we often have to drill down in context to like whatever. But okay, never mind Libs of TikTok doing stochastic terrorism. For Weiss, though, the more terrible thing is the fact that Twitter suspended Rychik's account at least 7 times, even though on at least one of those occasions, Rychik may not have technically violated the platform's hateful conduct policy. Whoa, whoa, woo. But as Urquhart wrote, and as Weiss herself revealed in the relevant thread, far from this being a case of aggressively woke Twitter moderators firing from the hip to silence an account they didn't like, Twitter took extra special care with Rychik's account, forbidding moderators to take action without first consulting with high-level Twitter executives. Oh, so special treatment and given more scrutiny and pause is now apparently a bad thing for conservatives. You know, they get treated with the kid gloves and then they complain about it, apparently. The Twitter files show that the company's executives were exquisitely sensitive to conservative charges of bias and that they treated the most volatile, prominent right-leaning accounts with kid gloves. Look! I didn't know that was coming up. Even as those accounts were almost exclusively dedicated to flooding the platform with malignant garbage. Take Donald Trump's Twitter account, for instance, which in the 2 months preceding its ultimate ban was primarily devoted to posting outright lies about the validity of the 2020 presidential election. Lies that helped precipitate a violent riot at the Capitol. In her Twitter files thread pertaining to Trump's ban, Weiss attempted to discredit Twitter's decision to ban the then president by observing that the company had allowed other world leaders to remain on the platform after posting incitements to violence. But not only is this line of argument ultimately irrelevant to the specific circumstances of Donald Trump's post-insurrection ban from Twitter, it shows that the previous Twitter regime was, if anything, incredibly reluctant to take sustained action against prominent account holders. It seems obvious to me that the fact that Twitter intervened with some of these accounts anyway has less to do with those accounts' conservative leanings than it does with the fact that these accounts were run by unscrupulous trolls who excel at exploiting good faith rules to their own bad faith advantage. Their whole shtick involves posting the dumbest, least credible arguments imaginable and then demanding that their output be treated no differently than material from reputable fact-based sources. I've been running into this for years now and it is so painful. So painful. I hate this so much. Like, I have to treat your flat earth nonsense with the same level of like credibility and seriousness as like a New York Times reporter. And then like, oh, you believe the New York Times? Oh, gee, you pulled up Wikipedia? And it's like, oh, I'm about to punch someone. Like, it's so dumb. So dumb. it drives me absolutely nuts. And it's one of the things I notice is the most determinative for how someone sees the world. What do they consider to be credible evidence? And as soon as you answer that question, you know exactly like what kind of person that person is. If you note that there is a difference between an argument sourced from the New York Times and one that is sourced from some right-wing fever dream Facebook page, they will scream partisan bias and gamble that you will respond by backing down. It's amazing that this is twice that I've like just been riffing and then the article is gonna say what I just said. Just almost like we're all experiencing similar rhetorical strategies. Huh, interesting. It is not necessarily to Twitter's discredit. Oh, I got some Nintendo music. Let's reboot this. It is not necessarily to Twitter's discredit that it may have maneuvered its own internal rules to counteract this rhetorical brinksmanship. Privileging credible content over maniacally inaccurate content isn't anti-conservative bias. It's bias against malevolent trolls. It isn't Twitter's fault that so much conservative discourse in the Trump era is so deeply, fundamentally dishonest. And this is kind of the point I get to. In the same way that, like, when I finished AI art, so cool. Okay. Bit of a tangent. But like I finished an article about how I see you got a link about how conservatives have an like if you look at YouTube, researchers were like, okay, YouTube isn't doing alt-right pipeline. It isn't sending people down like echo chambers or rabbit holes, but it does have a little bias towards promoting conservative content. But the researchers were like, but we don't know if this is just because conservatives are good at producing the content that YouTube likes or that their users are more engaged. In the same way that, like, in this article, it might just be bias against malevolent trolls and that Twitter doesn't like people who are producing ridiculous content, like, purely for, you know, partisan engagement, you know? It's not exactly idea. Can't believe that generated in 30 milliseconds. Ooh, not postulous. That's not what we want. Let's see if this is worth it. This better be worth it. Okay. It's alright. Dragon looks a little funny. Okay, moving on. It isn't Twitter's fault that so much conservative discourse in the Trump era is so deeply fundamentally dishonest. In response to that tilted dynamic, Twitter's moderation personnel still went out of their way to give bad faith pundits the benefit of the doubt. But the rest of us don't have to extend these pundits the same courtesy. TB and Weiss have made a very good living in recent years yelling about the chilling effects of wokeness and about purported bias in tech, business, politics, and the media. Elon Musk, too, has risen to cultural prominence and increased his own personal wealth by convening a rabid fandom around his own anti-woke and deeply annoying Twitter persona. The persona is deeply annoying even aside from its anti-woke aspects. Watch what happens to your Twitter mentions if you dare post a negative word about Tesla. There's a whole last article about this. Oh, geez, I'm not reading that. Sorry, that happened. Their ongoing cultural influence is in part contingent on their forever burnishing their own brands by self-identifying as heroic apostates who aren't afraid to call out left-wing thought suppression and who are tireless in their efforts to document and expose all the realms in which the woke mobs have achieved cultural capture. Sound familiar, anybody? I'm getting some Dr. Peterson vibes. The woke left. But another way to describe wokeness is accountability. And it is perhaps telling that many of those who yell the loudest about the perils of wokeness are so clearly trying to dodge accountability for their own words and deeds. Like Elon Musk, who tried and failed to wriggle out of his initial attempt to buy Twitter at a meme price once the deal started to look like a horrible idea, and who now, contra his free speech for all public persona, is apparently unilaterally moderating certain accounts that irritate him personally or have reported critically on Tesla. Or Barry Weiss, who hopped on a plane to Twitter HQ within 2 hours of being summoned there by Musk, but took at least 15 hours to tweet a wan, smarmy condemnation of Musk's pretextual journalist suspensions, and who, in her thread about Twitter's allegedly surreptitious practices of shadow banning and visibility filtering, did not link to the 2018 company blog post in which two Twitter executives carefully define shadow banning and explain the company's process for filtering tweets from ill-meaning actors. Oh my god. Jesus, she didn't do any homework. She didn't do her homework. That's embarrassing. Or Donald Trump, who went from using his Twitter account to take potshots at Rosie O'Donnell to using it to set the stage for a violent Capitol riot meant to impede the certification of a presidential election that his ego would not allow him to admit he lost, and whose subsequent Twitter ban made him a cause célèbre for all those who think freedom of speech means never having to answer for their own bullshit. As per Stephen Bannon's dictum to neutralize the mainstream media by flooding the public sphere with shit, the anti-woke crusaders spend their days spinning anecdotes of illiberal overreach and generalized fears of cultural change into self-aggrandizing specters that have come to loom large over right-wing political discourse. That does not mean that these people can never have a valid point. And indeed, remember that kernel of truth, and indeed, Taby and Weiss are right about one thing. Silicon Valley does wield functionally unchecked power over people's lives these days. Massive platform providers such as Facebook and Twitter exert significant influence over the scope, tone, tenor, and impact of social and political discourse. And reporters should strive to hold these companies accountable with critical, skeptical, and scrupulous work. As anyone who has not chosen to ride or die with the term fake news already knows, lots of excellent reporters already do this. Not for nothing has it emerged that many of the Twitter files disclosures had been previously reported or acknowledged in some form, just not with the facile, manipulative framing that revs the engines of the alt-right. In her Free Press piece that ran Thursday night, Weiss, to her credit, did sound a few skeptical notes about Musk. They were subsumed by the story's dominant three themes of grievance over old Twitter's allegedly pervasive bias and ingenuousness about Musk's ultimate intentions. Quote, but if the story of old Twitter is about the biases and prejudices and power trips of the company's former overlords, the question is what Musk will now do with the powerful tools they created, Weiss wrote. Quote, what does it mean when the owner of Twitter tweets that his pronouns are prosecute Fauci? The answers to these questions are blindingly obvious to anyone who does not have a vested interest in missing the point. What it means is that Musk has chosen to make common cause with the idiot trolls and unapologetic bigots who cheer and emulate mercurial, unscrupulous strongmen. He will dismantle the accountability structures at Twitter and will wield his power there unilaterally, while his hand-picked muckrakers focus on his predecessor's power trips. He will safeguard the future of civilization for those, like himself, who would gladly destroy it in order to secure their own short-term advantage. What a piece. Absolutely crushed it. Who was that? Justin Peters? It's 3 days old? Wow. What a good piece. There's some sentences in there that were like bodies. Makes you feel like you're watching Ludwig. I wish I could be as entertaining as Lud. Like, he does incredible streams. Okay, alright chat, it is getting close to lunchtime. I'm hungry. It's been a good stream. It's been kind of a rough and tumble. We learned so much. You've never watched Lud? He's alright. He's happy-go-lucky. He's got his finger on the pulse. He's smart. Yeah. I'll see you later. We're gonna go find someone to raid. Hopefully someone small like me, like little me. Abelina was a lot of fun yesterday. Kit Boga's on right now. We could go raid Gremlo. Quiet. We could go raid Gremlo, maybe. Any fans of Gremlo? He's pretty based. Let's see if anything exciting is happening over there. Okay, yeah, so let's go raid Gremlo. I appreciate his vibe. It'll be more politics. Go say hi, all that jazz. But yeah, I'll see you around. I'll get back to you, Globus. And I'll be back here tomorrow morning at 9, same time. Looks like I've got a flow. And yeah, thanks for hanging out, everybody. I'll see you later. Go say hi to Gremlo and make friends. And I'll see you later. Say something nice to someone you like. And do something nice for yourself today. Bye. Au revoir. Salut.